Good day, everyone. How are yous? Good to see yous all. Tracy's the early bird, and good to see you. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, that's a howling, yes, in my direction. And hello to you, Deborah, as well. Good to see you. Must be late where you are, my dear. Must be late. So that's it. We're still waiting for the remaining of the stragglers. Barbados is in the house. G'day, mate. Good to see you. Starting to pile in. Lukey. Morning, Lukey. Or good afternoon in your case. Pat. G'day, Jin. Good to see you, mate. And Mount Nash. Hello as well. Okay. 5 years. I always forget what you are. Yeah. It's not a problem, mate. Not a problem. It's in animal foods. It's nothing to do with me. It's a very ancient thing that's part of animal foods. It's just the way we prepare foods nowadays, the way we hang foods up, and they dry them out in these big refrigeration systems nowadays. You do lose more in that regard. In dairy, you don't really lose a lot, and the reason for that is for two reasons. One, it usually gets to be concentrated. Two, even if you basically, because it's in the fluids, so even if you basically heat up the fluids, it's still going to be there, so you don't lose much. In some cases, with fermentation, it can actually be enhanced, like between quite a few. I think Alarm asked me last time, and I think I said to him, I looked at the data, and it's about 8 times or something like that between the goat stuff and the actual, when you actually get the hard goat cheese. I think it was hard goat cheese that I mentioned. Anyway, but yeah, so, and it's very high in things like when you look at seafood and stuff like that. It's some seafood, it's extremely high. So we've been always getting it. The difference is, in the past, before refrigeration, most things were put on ice and were fairly fresh, were slaughtered on the same day and then sold, or caught on the same day, or the previous day, salted, brought to the wharf, and then in the fish market sold on that day. So most people had a lot of it felt relatively fresh and stuff like that. So the amount of taurine in the actual diet was much higher. Nowadays, it's low for a lot of reasons. It's low because of just people have been not using, not consuming animal foods in the traditional way. Now it's all in processed sort of industrial foods, whether you call that pizza with pepperoni on it, or whether you call it, that's probably the least problematic, the pepperoni. But if you're looking at, other industrial foods, how they've, most of the way they process things, you lose a lot of nutrients, taurine being one of them, but many others. So it's a very different kettle of fish and situation. And it's just one of those things that people are ignorant about. It's considered, well, we can produce a bit in the body. Yes, we can, but not much. And our requirements when we're not on a species appropriate diet actually go quite high, because you do so much damage, and it is antifibrotic. It regulates all sorts of things, but when you basically deplete it due to oxalates, due to a lot of xenoestrogens, due to a lot of toxins, where both in our environment and in our food supply, which is less ancestral, the way we live, obviously, the general food supply is not going to cut it, unfortunately. It's the reality. And that's what I found. I found when I've sort of brought this stuff back in, ancestral stuff that you would get. And remember, ancestral people also, they were on consuming these things for a very, very long time. Freshly slaughtered animals, and they would consume them there and then. And they also didn't consume a whole lot of garbage to damage themselves severely. So even the small amount of environmentally related or lifestyle or whatever small levels of damage that would have incurred was so insignificant that the amount of taurine, the amount of all these things could deal with it. Now we've basically been on kibble diets, have severe fibrosis of our livers, our hearts, our kidneys, all sorts of things, amyloid in our that's highly glycated, misfolded proteins all over our body and damaged proteins. Now, taurine plays a role in all of this stuff. And that's the reason why we're supplementing higher doses to correct a lot of the problems that we've created. I mean, it's like myself. I mean, I had fibrosis in the heart with a heart condition, 12 years ago. Now, since my last scan, which was 2018, zero fibrosis. It's gone. Now, my lung fibrosis was all glass. That's, my doctor was worried about cancer and stuff like that. That's actually come down quite a bit. So that's now about, I think he said 80%. Don't hold me to it. So now it's I need to go and do I still haven't done that damn scan because of COVID and all that and the situation. And now I will get it sorted. And then we'll see what progress I'm doing. Maybe I need to go back to the higher doses that I was doing before. So we'll see. I'll find out sure enough whether I need more or not. Taurine, Taurine, Taurine and Taurine. Taurine loves Tracy. Taurine loves Tracy, loves Tracy. There you go. You can play that all, repeat over and over again. Just clip it out. You can use the scissors now to clip that out and just play it over and over again, my dear. Okay. Oh, it is on Amazon as well. So it is available on Amazon and a couple of other websites. If you do search for it, you will find it on a number of websites. iHerb is just the one that I use. But you can use any others. I don't, say, you've got to use iHerb. No, I mean, I don't care what you use. Just Google and find it and order it. I just use it with iHerb because I'll order basically for Dad as well and myself. And I also get him a few other things that he needs, MSM for his joints and stuff like that. So I used to do MSM. I don't do it because my hair becomes far too thick. So last time I actually used a lot of MSM, my barber was finding it difficult to cut my hair because it was so thick. So yeah, that's how thick MSM. Too much, these sort of sulfurs, because I get plenty of sulfur amino acids from meat in terms of methionine, cysteine, and stuff like that, and the additional taurine. There's plenty there. Sulfur metabolism is improved with the choline that comes in with the meat. Its regulation, so it's all fine, not an issue. It's just for some people that may have some inability to clear sulfur. There's some genetics. It's a small minority of people, but if they take choline or they eat choline-rich foods like egg and meat, they'll be fine. If you eat, you can get enough choline. If you eat basically, I think it's, 300, what was it? I calculated it, 300 beef, 360, I can't remember exactly, 60 something grams. Let me just calculate that in ounces. So about nearly 13 ounces, you should get enough choline. That's for a male or a pregnant woman. So, if you eat more, you'll be fine. So that so even if those people, those small minority of people that have this sulfur issue, with enough methionine, with enough meat, choline that's in there, they can all regulate all that sort of stuff. So it's a non-issue. But unless you're basically dealing with some, like joint issues, a lot of collagen related issues, you probably don't need to supplement MSM. I usually did use it when I was actually so I wouldn't overuse my other sulfurs. So I did use it. It seems to work pretty well with. I don't use, and I need to clarify that I don't use taurine for oxalate dumping or oxalate issues. Let me make that quite clear. I do use it for everything else. Now, I do actually say that taurine will be depleted from oxalate, because oxalate uses sulfur amino acids. So it can deplete sulfur in your body. But I actually use, MSM. That's what I was using, the Jarrow one, the MSM at the time. There are other brands that I think are better than the Jarrow one that I've come across as well. So I'll leave that up to people to decide which way to go. And I think I did show the other one last time. So those sort of things I use, but the downside is if you use too many of these, like MSM and taurine in large amounts, and you don't have the dumping, and your hair is already pretty good, you may actually make extremely thick hair, which is difficult to brush or cut or whatever else. Now, if you've got thin hair, maybe a good idea, so to combine the two. So I'll leave that to people to experiment and play around with in terms of keratin sort of binding, in terms of improving that. You will grow your nails will grow faster if you do use MSM as well. So you'll be just keep that in mind. You'll be cutting your hair more often, and you'll be cutting your nails more often. So just keep that in mind. But if there may be women out there that want long, strong nails, yeah, MSM is one way to go. So I will leave that to women to decide which way they are. And I knew you'd do this, Tracy. You know what's going to happen now. I'm going to have to share this. And take that away. Is it going to come through? Taurine, 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 and Taurine. Taurine loves Tracy. Taurine loves Tracy, loves Tracy. There you go. Let's get rid of that joker. I knew Tracy would be the first person to do that. She can't help herself. She's an uncontrollable woman. Yes. That's okay, Pat. When it comes to taurine, diabetics taking blood pressure medication 1.5 months, what say you? I'd still be very careful. I'd definitely work with a physician. You've got to work with a doctor on this. You just can't just throw in a whole lot of taurine, and yes, it does bring down the blood pressure. It is a calcium channel blocker, but it's not a blunt one like your meds. And so it has two methods. One is it is a homeostatic regulator of extracellular fluids, so the fluids inside your cells and outside your cells, and also the minerals. So it'll actually increase potassium and magnesium inside the cell. This is why people eliminate cramps with taurine, because it keeps the potassium and the magnesium inside the cell. and actually forces more into the bloodstream, more sodium. So it actually balances all that out. That's where most of the sodium should be. A bit in the cytosol and in the mitochondria, but the majority of it should be in the bloodstream. So that's one reason why it actually sort of regulates that. That's the magic of taurine. It's a regulator, and it determines the pressure that the cell should have. That was actually its first job millions and millions of years ago, determining the pressure of a cell wall, so to protect the actual cell itself, in that regard. And also, it by regulating that sort of pressure, it means that the different compartments within the cytosol are also protected from sort of pressuring on each other and stuff like that. So it plays a lot of roles in the endoplasmic reticulum. It plays a role in basically protecting, the whole structure there, and the ribosomes, making sure it sort of assists in protein folding, correct protein folding, which is really important for proper functioning proteins in the body. So it plays look, it's countless, millions and millions. I wouldn't be surprised. I could basically do videos for the next 100 years on taurine. There's so much. I'm never going to, even by the time I die, I'm never going to cover everything on taurine. It's every single area you can think of in the body, it's involved, and it's in every single cell of the body. That should tell you everything. It's as pervasive as cholesterol in every single cell. So yeah, that pretty much should cover it. But when it comes to basically, I would definitely work with a physician, and I would basically go slow, like 1 gram. Go and check. If, for instance, it's only been a minor reduction in blood pressure, then try 2 grams, and then go and check again with the doctor to make sure that the meds are properly being brought down, adjusted, until you can eliminate them. Don't eliminate the meds, please. And don't increase rapidly the taurine. I've done the video. I've got a video that basically talks about taurine and meds. And my name, you can Google it and actually find it, or go through the video list. And it's really important that you keep that in mind if you're dealing with somebody. It may not be yourself or someone else, that they really understand this, or see that video and understand that they need to work with a physician and adjust slowly their meds downwards as they increase taurine upwards, and replace one. The other nice thing about when it comes, it also reduces lactate, so which pretty much means that more gets pushed through the Krebs cycle, more get oxidized much better, and also increases lipolysis. So for people who basically are diabetics, it actually can reduce the severity of the Randall cycle. So it can actually bring down the gradient and reduce the amount of glycating factors in the body, and in the bloodstream as well. So it's a definitely benefit for diabetics. It definitely is. But, if they're on meds, it's really important. And in particular, calcium channel blockers are a bit of a, with those, you'll get a bit more reaction. The if you're on diuretics and stuff like that, it's just a matter of basically adjusting going slow and all that. With calcium channel blockers, you have to be a bit more careful, because you could actually over magnify that effect, and we don't want to do that. That can cause other derangements. That's why you have to go very low. And I've even considered people going, sticking to like 0.5 gram, checking, then doing another 0.5 gram, then going back and checking with their doctor and making adjustments and stuff like that. So yeah, do it the right way. Not everybody reacts the same way. So, somebody may take, I've had people that have taken like 0.5 gram and reacted quite a bit, their blood pressure differences, and then others have taken 1 gram or 2, and really there hasn't been a lot of, it's probably genetics. There's probably a whole lot of other factors that we don't really know in that regard. So there are going to be variations, and that's why you need a physician to keep monitoring and adjusting, so Keep that in mind. I don't say that just as a passing comment. I say it because, you know, interacting with other people, and I don't want people to get into trouble, you know. So you've got to be careful, you know, don't take these lightly. Um, yeah, it is. It is. If you take, somebody did actually say that, well, I'll actually tell you who. Bart actually was taking a bit of taurine, but he wasn't taking enough. And I suspect he was doing a lot of like coffees, because he does a lot of coffees. He has a tendency. He likes coffees. I mean, I like coffees, but I've sort of cut down quite a bit. But when you're doing low doses of coffee, sorry, low doses of taurine plus coffee, it actually can magnify the effect of coffee. Yeah, the caffeine effect. So you can actually compensate for that if you actually take a higher dose, like, you know, 4 grams or whatever, then it counteracts that completely and actually reduces the effects of coffee in that regard. So this is in an animal model, but the reality is that, you know, he may have not been getting enough, and his sleep, you know. So yeah, that's it's a nuanced thing. It's an animal model. I didn't mention it to him. I just saw it, one of his live streams that he mentioned. No, it wasn't. It was a steak and butter, and he was talking about it, and I'm going, you know, because I saw it after the fact, not live, and so I go, oh, yeah, okay. So I thought I'd mention it. I should actually send him an email and actually tell him as well. So, send him the study or do a video actually. um, so yeah, so it is, the problem is, you know, when it comes to, even if you weren't supplementing taurine, you don't get enough taurine from the diet. So even if you get, you know, even if you eat quite a bit and you get 1 gram from eating shitloads of steak and some seafood or whatever, even then, if you're having a lot of coffee, it can actually magnify the caffeine effect. And it may be a reason why some carnivores actually get this sleep problem, because they're having too much coffee, not getting enough taurine to counteract the coffee, and they're actually magnifying the effect. They're doing the opposite. They're actually having the opposite effect that it would have normally, because one's pushing up cortisol, the other's pushing up, you know, sort of GABA, and it's impeding the coffee because there's not enough taurine to counteract the coffee effect on, and it's down. It's having a suppressive effect, the caffeine, on GABA A, and that's another thing which is really important about anxiety, calmness, and stuff like that. And so, if you see you know, a sort of a carnivore who's not calm, who's a bit more anxious and stuff like that, it could be that he's suppressing by, or she's suppressing by too much coffee, their GABA A as a consequence. So it's a bit nuanced in that regard. Um, it's something that I had read ages ago, but I forgot all about it. And then when Bart said that, I go, oh, I can't even remember. I can't. It was some sort of experiment, some sort of. I can't remember whether it was the animal model was some sort of thing in the ocean, or it was a worm. I can't remember the actual. I'll have to go. It's probably in one of my bloody folders somewhere, but I'll have to find it. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah. Just keep that in mind, people out there. It does improve sleep, but also if you're putting too much coffee, especially later in the evening or afternoon, it can, if you're not getting enough taurine, counteract that caffeine counteract or derange that. We don't really understand it exactly, but it just seems like it has an effect because of the way it affects certain hormones. Um, yeah, but there's maybe some enzymatic steps that we haven't understood completely. But anyway, I'll leave that for another day. G'day, Jane. How are you? Ah, my alien drone service. How are you, mate? What's happening out there in the ether? Are we being invaded? Yes, yes, yeah. But there are other places. Yeah. Do Google, and you will find. It's just basically for Australia, we get at a certain when you buy a certain amount of product from iHerb, we get free because they've got a facility, I believe, in Australia where they actually can they usually bring quantities or stuff like that, and then it's a free postal service. So as it's coming through Australia Post, so it actually brings down the cost over a certain limit. And so, yeah, it's more to do with that, sort of their bulk transports or whatever. That's why it takes a bit longer as well to get into the country, to get here. So, because they have to do these sort of bulk sendings, so it can take, quite a few weeks. But when you do get it, you get it for free postage. So, and I usually pre-order things before I need them, so it's not an issue. And that's why the only reason I use them pretty much, and I don't like supporting Amazon. Simple as that. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Most people are for most of their life. And remember, oxalates deplete taurine, and many xenoestrogens do also because it's used in detoxification. When we're talking about choline and taurine are used in phase 2 detoxification in your liver. So if you don't eat enough animal foods, you're going to be deficient in both. And over time, you basically become more fibrotic. More of your tissue becomes fibrotic, and more damage happens inside the cells and misfolding proteins. In your brain, you actually end up with more misfolded proteins as well. Over time, that actually can increase to dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So, misfolded proteins and glycated proteins. It also reduces glycation. It also reduces, because it's a natural calcium blocker, it reduces high concentrations of calcium and excitation in the brain. So even for people with mental diseases, neurological diseases, and stuff like that, it actually calms them down. It actually improves. A child who has got ADHD will actually become a really nice, pleasant child. You see like Mary Ruddock had noticed with the tribal kids, they're on actual eating a high taurine diet from birth. Those kids are very calm, extremely calm. You want to calm your kids down, put them on a bit of taurine and get them off all the junk. So, probably only need a gram for the kids. You may need initially, for a couple of weeks, 2 grams just to try and reduce all the other damaging effects, and then basically normalize them. So yes, people have noticed improvements in calmness and stuff like that. And also for kids that may not be getting enough protein for whatever reason, you may be struggling to get protein in them. It is an amino transporter, so it will help bring in more aminos and absorb them for the kids. It is a myostatin inhibitor without causing heart remodeling, so there's no risk to the heart. But what it does is it actually lowers myostatin in the peripheral tissue, which is the muscles, which means it'll make the kids more muscular, stronger, and grow much better and bigger and stronger. So if you want healthy, strong kids, primarily you should be getting it from the animal foods, because they are smaller in size as a child and probably don't need, the big doses and all that. If they eat plenty of meat, they'll get plenty in that regard. But if you've got a kid that's been eating a lot of junk for a lot of time, it's probably a good idea and it will calm them down as well, make them a better student, perform better. So, and also heal better. So if they get injuries, they'll heal much faster. That's another thing that taurine helps with. I also recommend it for kids that are involved in contact sport, because when you hit, for instance, the thing that actually, and this is actually, heart. I've actually shown. I think I've shown you guys some data and all that on heart reperfusion. How basically, if you get a heart injury or whatever, the reperfusion can actually do damage to the heart. Well, taurine prevents that. The other thing is, if you get knocked head, you get knocked out or unconscious, or you have a sports injury, a head injury or stuff like that, it actually reduces the damage. It actually, if used in higher doses, it's actually been shown to reverse damage from basically when it comes to strokes and things like that. So that's severe, like on steroids, severe type of, head sort of brain damage or whatever. So even that can actually be mitigated to a large extent with taurine. There's plenty of research in that. So, it is really good at, and it's probably a reason because it's controlling sort of the flow of these ions that are going into the brain and minimizing that sort of effect. So that's playing a role. Anyway, yes, so I'm not surprised, that most people are deficient, pretty much. Most people are deficient in a lot of things, animal-based wise, choline, taurine, you name it, carnosine, anything, creatine, you pick your animal nutrient, and we're deficient. A lot of us have been for a very long time. We've got a lot of damage that we're still healing. I'm still healing. I think most of you guys are as well. We're on a journey of healing, pretty much. And it's taken us a long time to realize that we're on the wrong road. So, yes. Not a problem. Good to hear. Yes. Please hit the like button. Please do hit the like button in that regard. So, yes. Yeah, it does. It does, exactly, because it lowers cortisol at night. It lowers cortisol, and it actually increases, allows for melatonin to increase, which basically then, and also increases GABA A, which sort of calms down and helps increase melatonin as well, production. So it sort of really has that effect. If people haven't seen my new video on Pfizer and senolytics and how to enhance using taurine, the combo of taurine, melatonin, go and look at it. Obviously, you just need the taurine. Well, maybe a bit of melatonin if you've got really a poor status of melatonin. You may want to use a bit until your own endogenous sort of comes back and gets sorted in that regard. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Coach Ronan didn't approve of my functional heavy cream addiction. Okay. Look, I mean, I don't, if somebody wants to really lose, is not physically active, is sedentary, doesn't want to lose, wants to lose a lot of weight and stuff like that, and sort of, I don't recommend. On a priming, not a problem, but after that, I usually say to people, yeah, take it away to sort of allow more of your own body fat to be basically utilized. But if you're like yourself, you're building your muscles, you need additional energy and all that, and you're using L-citrulline, you're using basically taurine to enhance all that, and you're actually building more rapidly, and you need that extra energy. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It depends what you're doing. I, not everybody's going to do the same thing. It depends where they're at. Some people may have derangements. That means mitochondrial damage, where they can't they're having difficulty actually being able to oxidize fat. Now, those people I don't encourage to use, heavy creams or stuff like that. Or any stuff like that. So I usually encourage them to, eat the ruminant animals with their fat, and try to lower by using animal fats in particular, but not severely, just a certain amount, and try to lower. And usually, if they have deuterium damage, I usually encourage them also to do a low deuterium type diet, like try and getting deuterium depleted water in order to basically re-regulate slightly and improve the mitochondrial function, using stearic acid for reverse electron transport to create more biogenesis, and little biohacks like that to try and improve their fat oxidation and fat adaptation, because some people have got severe damage. It depends where you are, depends where people are. You're pretty young, and it's not an issue. Raymond's actually much older, and possibly like me, probably doesn't have my level of mitochondrial damage. I've got much more severe mitochondrial damage than Raymond has, because he's relatively younger than me. I did far more damage. I mean, I remember I got to the stage where I ended up with a heart disease, 90 odd percent blocked, and had to have a double bypass surgery. So I was quite damaged, severe lung, glassing in one of my lungs, so I was a wreck, basically in my mid 40s, and a heavy drinker, a smoker, and many other things that I did in the past. So I had a lot of damage, that I basically look half decent now in my mid 50s is because of the, improving my diet and doing these biohacks and all that. But I'm still on that journey of repairing and healing. I haven't finished. I've still got a lot of damage that I have. I don't have that mitochondrial efficiency that I would love to have, that I had as a young person. I don't know whether I can restore it to that level. I'm hoping, with all the things that I do, but and working hard at it. And as long as I'm persistently working at it, I'm going to get more results that way. But you've got to be realistic about these things. Yeah. So in your case, I wouldn't really worry at all, Lukey. But if somebody was, in their 60s and very damaged and all that, I'd probably approach them very differently in that regard. So, we shouldn't generalize. All we can generalize is on ruminant animals and seafood and stuff like that. Now, with the eggs and dairy depends on whether you can tolerate them, and other things, it depends on these sort of other factors as well. So yes, but do leave me comments, because even if I don't answer them immediately, I will answer them on the next 2 days after, so they all get answered. I do try and get through all my comments litigiously. So yeah. I found a liver dose that works for me. Small amounts, high energy from the organs, improved sleep from the taurine. Actually, sleeping less, haven't gotten those symptoms like before from the liver. Okay. Your body will sleep how much it wants. I mean, as long as you don't have interrupted sleep and it's continuous sleep, that actually tells you that actually you're getting good sleep. When you're having to do less repair, you're basically going to sleep less. Simple as that. The more repair you have to do, the longer you're going to sleep. It's the reason why they basically put people into induced coma when they actually have brain damage or brain injury, deliberately, so the whole system is calmed down in order for it to heal. So people that have got tend to be more sleepy, tend to be more damaged, and so there's all that sort of stuff. But I always say to people, play around. What works for one person may not work for the other. So wondering what other things taurine will help me with. Many things, believe me, many things. It's the Swiss Army knife of the body. I mean, I've only covered a few things. I mean, my recent one that I did was on how it regulates inflammasome, and how by interacting and it regulating inflammasome and interleukin 18, it actually makes sure that the right microbiome actually exists inside you. It eliminates the histamine issue. It eliminates the spermidine. It lowers spermidine and lowers histamine. So spermidine inside the gut is really growing massive, your gut microbiome more than you should. And it ends up growing so much, it ends up then becoming SIBO, growing up into your small intestine and basically causing small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But taurine prevents that because via inflammasome. It's my recent video that I did. So if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. You know, it's a good video. I put a bit of work in that. So what did I call it? Something about resetting the gut. Yes, I've been told that I should make my titles a bit more sexy, yeah, a bit more adventurous. This will make your gut sexy, you know, something like that. Maybe that'll get more clicks. Anyway, so it was what metabolites shape the gut microbiome. So it's about 4 days ago. So that's the one. And that really goes into the nuances of inflammasome. I'll stick that in the chat. Might as well promote some of my material. So I'll call it Fix Gut. There's that one. So that's a bit of an insight into how it regulates the whole gut issue. It's the reason why raw carnivores, or you know, when people basically take that in, they actually see a lot of improvements. So when people basically do that, they actually go, oh, you know. So people that are coming from that are severely taurine depleted and are coming from like a veganurized diet and come across to a carnivore diet, they can't handle the actual the cooked meat. So they go to raw meat and they go, oh, what a relief. It's the taurine. You know, so it's really the taurine that's playing the role. They just don't know it, you know. So another reason why you shouldn't overcook your meat. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the you know, if you go back, let's say 1950s and 60s, people were basically consuming 2/3 of their animal foods were meat, were animal based, and 1/3 was basically plants. This is in the 50s and 60s. No refrigeration and seasonal sugar. What was happening then? We didn't have these gut problems or a lot of these things. Plus, we didn't have glyphosate causing gut problems. That's another issue in itself. But also the regulation and the, you know, like histamines and overgrowth of bacteria through spermidine. That is all regulated by taurine, regulating inflammasome and regulating interleukin 18, and through that AMPs that actually control and regulate the gut microbiome. So it doesn't get out of whack, you know. You don't get too much growth of Prevotella and certain other, you know, Prevotella's not a, you know, if it's within a certain range, it's fine. If it gets too much, you know, especially fiber will increase Prevotella in the absence that is of taurine that actually keeps it under control. So without taurine in the system and just fiber, then it actually grows rapidly. And this is probably one reason why people, when they take fiber supplements and all that, they make things worse, because the taurine isn't there to sort of keep under control Prevotella and things like that. Then you get, because Prevotella, I've done a video on the myths and falsehoods of veganism. It's in my playlist of that. It's the one that also talks about Prevotella and shows the studies and the differences between the bifidobacteria stuff that actually increases with meat consumption, that actually improves and reduces inflammation, and how Prevotella, too much, some is required, is indicated, too much is contraindicated, and that's what happens on a veganurized diet, and that's why people have all these gut issues and stuff like that. But back then, we were also getting our meat slaughtered from a butcher on the day. We were taking it. It wasn't hung up to lose a lot of taurine in the storerooms, with a lot of the fluids running off. And, because if you go in a store, I've been in a storeroom to, you know, to help, to get, basically, I used to, when I was a youngster, I was working as, a restaurant. We also did the food preparation and stuff like that. This is when I was 13 and a half. And I used to go down to a butcher, and the butcher actually knew me quite well. And he'd actually drive me back to the actual the business that I was working in. So he was a really nice old gentleman, and I'd go in there and help him basically carry these out. You could see all on the ground. You could see all this blood and all these fluids that had actually run off the actual animal. So I'm well aware of slaughter techniques. And when you put it into a refrigeration system like that for a very long time, and you don't freeze it, you sort of dry it, it loses more of the taurine. So most of our food supply isn't like freshly butchered, freshly killed, freshly slaughtered, so they're going to be different levels, and that plays a role. So our environment is not ancestral. Our environment isn't even traditional anymore. It's very much determined by price point, storage, transport, all these efficiencies. They have improved efficiencies, but they also have detrimental effects on certain nutrients inside those foods. And we consume far less, seafood, which is much higher in taurine than what we used to do years ago. So that's another factor. And that's for a whole lot of things, mismanagement of fish resources and many other factors, which, would take too long to explain it all. Anyway, I'm doing my dry fast at the moment. Been 64 hours so far. I'm going to break fast at 72 hours. It's the best way to break. Always made some meat broth. Yep. Yeah. My last fast was 3.5 days. And then at that point I started feeling hungry, and I go, nah, bugger it. I'm starting to eat again. And so I just broke my fast at that point. Yeah. So it was interesting. Anyway. Oh, Adex here. G'day. How's it going? And what do you think a massive 2 centimeters in the throat and enlarged lymph gland about the same size? Chances of being cancer? No idea. I'm not a medical device, Jane. You need to go to a doctor, get it scanned by a medical device, and it'll actually tell you what it is. It could be benign. It could be just, something that sometimes happens for a whole lot of reasons, some reaction to stuff like that. All sorts of people have, I've had, like on my skin years ago, I had like a growth thing that actually happened, then I went away. It was benign, nothing. I'd actually checked it with a dermatologist. So, you still have to check it. Can't really tell you, So unless you check, you don't know. Yes, homeostasis. Yes, very, very an important homeostatic regulator. Taurine is, even in the gut, stomach. Yes, it homeostatically regulates how much acid you should have. It also homeostatically regulates the gut motility. Plays an important role there. A few other things do play a role in gut motility, but taurine is one of the big players. It's in every single cell of those collagen fibers that actually regulated. I'm always interested how it actually is doing it, whether it's changing the pressure differential within those cells, because it does regulate pressure. Whether that's the magic, the way it does it. Anyway, be interesting. I need to research it out of curiosity than anything else. Yes, I need to know. If I don't know, it really sort of. I need to know. Yeah, I'm a bit like that sometimes. Oh, what else? What else? It doesn't matter where you can get it. I leave that up to people. I don't really care what you get. I just tell you what it is, as a product that's, I consider, a better quality product. But I don't basically say to people, don't experiment. I don't basically go, Dad, he basically says, nah, can't be bothered. He actually takes the one um, from one of the bodybuilder outlets and just ignores me. But that's my dad. He'll basically say, well, I can get it myself. I don't need you. Bugger off. So, because I used to get it for him, and now he just gets it from the bodybuilding shop, and he goes, I can do it myself. He goes and gets his leucine and goes, I don't need you. And I go, okay. He's a bit of an independent-minded person. But Dad doesn't want even his kids controlling him. He's a bit like that. I'm going to do my thing. Thank you for the information. And yes, you can go away now, Sonny, and I'll sort it out myself. So it's a bit like that. But anyway, maybe that's where I get my sort of independent spirit as well. Yeah, I'll actually put it in the chat box. That's what it is. It's basically, oh, come on. And if you're on any other site, and you want to Google it, I copied it 3 times. How do I manage that? So if you want to Google it, you can find it. So position it. And Deborah, you can also give it to your dogs as well and your cats. So it is fine, in that regard, if you want to put a bit extra in there. I know that my brother Sean, he basically gave some to a cat that got injured. Its hind leg got injured quite badly, and gave it a bit, and then couldn't be bothered giving any more of his supplement because he said, no, bugger it. And then just went and bought a whole lot of hearts because hearts are a really good source of taurine, and just fed the cat hearts every single day. And you know what? Fixed the whole problem. Cat was fine after that. So, yeah. So you can supplement with animals as well to reduce their fibrotic tissue and heal and get them to heal faster. So, in that regard. Anyway, I swear, Harry, you've got more hair than in previous videos. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I need to go and get another haircut. And my hair grows too fast, which is bloody annoying. Even though I've got the genetics that I should be all my family. My father's got a bit of alopecia. My uncle has severe alopecia. My cousin, Harry's got the same name as me. He's got a lot of alopecia. He's quite bald in many areas. G'day, Lukey.
Hello.
And I also have the genetics for being, I've actually shown them before. I'm not going to bother now. Lukey's seen them. My genetics to basically go grey. My mother went grey in her mid-30s and all that. And I'm very photosensitive as well to light. And recently I've been outdoors, trying to get more vitamin D and all that. And I've noticed my greyness now. My brother actually said, I don't know. Is it you stressing about your job, losing your job in the last year as well? I said, maybe it's a bit of both that's basically grayed me out a bit, because I was under a lot of stress with the Jabba the Hutt requirements at work and all that sort of shit. So, yeah, I have been under a lot of stress. I've been hiding it, but I'm still been under a lot of stress. I just don't basically sit out there going, oh, that's not me. I just, you crying about it isn't going to fix it. You just basically have to try and find solutions, toughen up, find solutions, and try and sort it out. Unfortunately, the world isn't a fair world, isn't it's a fallen realm as I would call it. And the end of the day, I try to basically push away the demons of the world and try and bring Christ into me and that's all I can do. It's a very hard, but I will fight for my rights and freedoms and stuff like that. So even though I had a lot to lose, I put my foot down and eventually they relented and gave me, so allowed me to work from home permanently, which, isn't in the rule books, but they still allowed me. So, yeah. So don't give in to, because what they've been trying to do is strip away a lot of our rights, and our freedoms. Something that is given to us by God, they can't take away. They may think, I remember there's an old saying that even in chains, I can't remember whether it was St. Paul or Peter, that basically even in chains you can sort of rattle your chains and you can be free because you've got Christ inside you, because you reject this human captivity. You don't basically accept the cage that they've put you in. You reject the cage, where most people are basically unable to basically, well, today's people, God, they worship the cage, the security, the safety of the cage, and the control of those benevolent elites. Yes, so yeah, there's a difference, and so no, my love is for Christ. It's not for basically these assholes who try to strip away our rights and try to basically force us into a cage. Half of the population, well, the majority of the population don't even realize they are in a cage. They think they're free. They're deluded. The difference is a lot of us actually realize we are in a cage, and at least we can actually rattle our chains. We've got freedom in our heart and we can rattle our chains, where the majority, yeah. Adex said she lost her best friend to the cage. Yes, unfortunately, yeah, many of them have gone that way. Yes, unfortunately, have complied.
Exactly. Yeah, I've cut ties with a lot of people over these last couple years. I guess it's been the same way for many, of many at least in this community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty much like that. How are you? What is it I use before my gym sessions? Now, citrulline malate, taurine, 4 liver tablets, and K2, M4 plus M4. Or what's M4? You know what M4 is? I don't know what M4 is. It's
I'm not sure.
too
Maybe
cryptic for
maybe he was
me.
meaning MK4 or something.
Yeah, MK4, the version.
I
Yeah.
think that's it.
Oh, yeah, probably it is. I'm going M4. What the hell is that? Is that something new that I'm unaware of? Probably a nutraceutical, So over the past 6 weeks, since starting Makani, I've gone from 78 bench press to 110 kilograms yesterday, 1 RM. Good for you. Very good. Very good. Yes, citrulline actually does enhance, I always say, about half an hour before with creatine and about 90 minutes before with taurine. And it does have an enhancing effect in the way you perform. You can actually go for longer and all that. But obviously, don't overtrain. Not a good thing. You still need most of the muscles, most of the actual gains happen in the recovery period. So keep that in mind. Shelley, good to see you, my dear. Good to see you. G'day, Raymond. Good to see you, mate. Do taurine socks? Oh, yeah. No, go away, Knox. Next, go away, next. God, it's all your fault. Do you realise that? She comes over here and disturbs the other patrons. God. G'day, Robbie.
If we ever get an AI trained on your speech patterns, Harry, that's what I'm doing. I'm making it sing the Taurine song.
Oh, God. I can believe that. Bruce, g'day, mate. For someone in a meat-based diet, how much supplemental taurine would be recommended to experience all the benefits my genetic predisposed me to varicose veins? I sort of cover that in the varicose vein video, you know. But I always say that it depends on your age, it depends on your circumstance, depends on a lot of things. If you're a young person, probably 2 grams is probably all you need. You're getting plenty from the food, you're getting some from endogenous production, and then the rest, is fine. And the more methionine you consume, and if you're younger, you can convert more of that to cysteine and then taurine through those enzymatic pathways. So it goes down a bit. But if you're old, you've got a lot of damage, you're middle-aged with a lot of damage and all that, you may need at least 4 grams, So, yeah, depends on the circumstances. I actually just, recently remember that thing because Bart's been talking about because how much he drinks coffee like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he basically was taking very low amounts of taurine. But this was actually even before he took taurine, he basically still had sleep problems.
Yeah, but he overcooks his meat.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't get enough taurine. But even the small amount of taurine, when you get a small amount of taurine when you're on a carnivore diet, I forgot about this whole research. It actually magnifies. I have to find it and actually do a video on it. It actually magnifies the effects of caffeine. It's actually worse. So if you just have caffeine without any taurine, you'll get less of an effect. You add a small amount of taurine, you actually magnify the effect of caffeine for whatever reason. And then when you have a good amount of taurine, it counteracts. It seems to cause some dysregulation because the caffeine, when you're having quite a bit of caffeine, actually increases that cortisol type effect.
Yes.
And norepinephrine and stuff like that. And that seems to have a negative effect on GABA A. And so in order to compensate, you have to take a bit more taurine to compensate. And if you're only doing, a lot of coffees and just 1 or 2 grams potentially, he just cooks everything so he gets nothing from the food from overcooking it. And he loses a lot of fluids, as Pim says. It's basically there's nothing soft about it.
Oh god.
So there's pretty much no fluids in it. So it's yes, very well done. And yeah, it's probably a thing that actually magnifies that effect. Now, obviously, if you're only doing 1 or 2 coffees a day, it's not going to be a problem. But if you're taking high doses of caffeine, which is what Bart does, because he has a tendency, he does double shots he has multiple coffees and he does double shots. So he has quite a lot of coffee and quite a lot of caffeine. And yeah, I forgot all about it. I forgot all about this effect. But most people sort of drink coffee reasonably. Bart doesn't. He's an extremist. He does things and it's like, if you tell him don't do this, he'll do the opposite. Raymond probably said, don't drink coffee. So he would have maximized his coffee just because Raymond said, don't drink coffee.
I don't know if you know. He's probably
Raymond should have basically told him, drink as much coffee as you like. He probably would have cut back to nothing.
But I don't know if you noticed that, but at the beginning, when there was the echoing going on, I was like, Bart, isn't there any chance that maybe there's like software input on your system? I wasn't saying anything. I just gave this suggestion. He was checking it. Because if I said, oh, I think it's this, he might not have checked it.
Exactly. Oh, well, Robbie, what do you ask? Where have you been? Have you been hiding under a rock or something? What's a good dilator or vasodilator of the...
What do you want that for?
Well, we know 2 things that actually are really good at that. One actually quite good for other purposes as well.
Yep.
30 minutes before fun and games. And the other one is just basically the one that actually brings down the general blood pressure and stuff like that, which is taurine. The other one is L-citrulline. Yes,
Citrulline, yes.
yes. My favorite thing before playing. Yes. Anyway, we'll move on. Playing with the ladies, that is. Without going into too much details, yes. It's nothing Shelley and Tracy haven't heard, but anyway, there may be younger ones around, so we have to be careful what we say. Snip, snip. So the sulfur amino acid, and it basically also helps with keratin binding. So it's a keratin binder. So there's a lot of keratin in your collagen, but in particular, your nails are very high in keratin, and your hair is very high in keratin. So what happens is you'll end up with thicker, stronger nails and hair, especially if you take quite a bit. So if you do have issues like thinning out hair and all that, probably a good thing to put in there. Combine it with biotin, obviously. You do need biotin to actually make it work. So biotin is very important as well. So it's a combination of cholesterol, biotin, and sulfurs, So, and then the rest will come, the general aminos and all that. I mean, you can even from just general cellular turnover, you can get certain aminos. So let's not get too wound about it. Remember, people fasting, put leucine into them. There's still an amino turnover. They can actually reforce those back into muscle protein synthesis.
Yep.
So yes. So there are. That's my sort of biohack for the frail old people: taurine and leucine, a mild myostatin inhibitor, and leucine for muscle protein synthesis.
Yep.
Yes. Because they are always on a fasting mimicking diet, eating kibble in those nursing homes. That's why they waste away the way they do.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's what happened to my great grandma, and it was terrible, just sad.
Yeah, it is. You see them; they can't even get off the chair anymore because they've become so frail. Because they're on a This is what happens to vegans as well. They're on a fasting mimicking diet, and after 5 whatever years, they literally fall apart. Some of them survive a bit longer because they've got better reserves or better genetics, but the majority of them literally fail within the less than 5 years. And it's, again, you can't be on a fast forever. Even the orthodox fast is sort of a vegan type fasting mimicking diet. With sort of greens and stuff like that. Not even olive oil, nothing. It's just you have to put lemon juice on it. That's about it. So these wild herbs that my mother used to cook, and then basically, she used to cook these. It was part of the Greek Orthodox fast. We used to have these wild herbs and stuff like that, and she'd only put lemon juice on them, and that's what we were fed.
At least some lemon juice to counteract
only when we were teenagers. This happened. When we were very young, we didn't, because you're not supposed to fast as a child. Sure. You're not supposed to fast as a pregnant woman. But when you become a teenager, you're allowed to do small short-term fasts. So that's what my mother told me anyway. But so but. So we did that sort of stuff. But it's funny how a lot of that, as we came into the 80s and 90s, a lot of that fell by the wayside, and a lot of us sort of gave up on a lot of those traditions. We sort of embraced the expert, or the expert knows best how to eat and do this and that.
Yep.
And we just ignored all our traditions. It's ridiculous. People got very sick very fast. Yes. Keep on searching. They do exist. Well, you don't actually don't need, if you're getting, it depends what you're trying to do. I only recommend menaquinone 4 in high doses for specific conditions when there is basically calcification, soft tissue calcification. That's when I recommend it. You do not need it if you've got no soft tissue calcification. You should get enough from the diet. There's plenty in eggs. There's plenty in meat. and there's plenty in different organs and stuff like that to get menaquinone for. You do not need it to supplement. At most, I mean, I actually did some stuff that I actually showed. At most, you can get 100 microgram dosage if you want to off iHerb. So there's a brand there. Where is it? Let me just check. I'll ask you a question. So while I'm searching, what have you been doing with yourself, exercise-wise and all that sort of stuff?
Oh yes, so I did do about a couple months of low rep, like strength training type at the gym. So it was my first
Okay.
time doing those, because I did do calisthenics before. I did do that training for strength specifically, but was the first time I actually did like heavy weights at the gym, with barbells and stuff.
Mm.
And I was initially worried because I was like, okay, I don't want to injure myself, but everything went fine. And yeah, I actually put on about 1.5 kilos. Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty good.
yeah, it's pretty good actually. And I did get some extra subcutaneous fat, but very minimal. And I'm actually feeling quite good, Harry. I think like it has made like daily tasks feel much easier because I'm much stronger now. Like I've gone up and up on my 1 rep max, and yeah, it's quite interesting. But now I've stopped because I noticed I was beginning to plateau out, and
Okay.
I'm back to more of a mixed approach. It's more of a like medium rep range and some strength work at the same time, and I'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's been fairly interesting, and I did notice very positive outcomes.
Okay. Yeah. I think, as I've said to people, you need to experiment a bit and see how it sort of works for you, because well, I think there are, to some extent, there is genetics involved and stuff like that. I mean, even when it comes to myostatin differences, between different people, there's different genetics. So certain things affect differently in different ways. So it's not one approach. I usually say to people, try, test things out, see how it goes, do a bit of experimentation.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're training for a specific weight, you should be training for that. So if you're, but that's a different thing. That's basically somebody who's trying to train. I'm training for for weightlifting, for a specific category, weight class and stuff like that. They need to train to that level, because that's the whole purpose. The training to basically win a medal or win a competition or something along those lines. And that's what you should be training for at that level. But if you're
Exactly.
basically, doing other things, I always say to people, is there a reason you're doing this sort of thing? Is there a purpose behind it? So, because sometimes people are just, they haven't really thought it out why they're doing what they're doing. And so it's always a good idea that people basically take stock, consider things, look at these things, and then consider, am I doing it for the right purposes? Because sometimes you can actually be doing it for the wrong purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's even with older people, I usually say, well, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to basically improve your composition? Are you trying to improve your bone density, your muscle density? What are you trying to achieve? Those things can be quite different one from the other. And the thing is, I wouldn't be but I'd be building up over time the amount of strength exercise you were doing, not even if your muscles were big enough to actually lift something, your bones, I don't want to put them under too much strain to cause fractures or anything like that. So you need to fix that first before you can basically start lifting a lot of things. And some people, sometimes they've come from a veganurized diet, they go into a carnivore diet, and then they sort of go into this sort of crazy sort of bodybuilding or whatever sort of phase, and they don't realize, your bones may not be strong enough to handle that muscle tissue. Have you fixed that?
Yeah, exactly. And another common issue is that people don't realize this, but you have to be really careful because muscle can respond to loading, can adapt much quicker than your connective tissue. So that's where a source of injury is often happening.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I think it's this one. Yep. This is the one that I usually, for the general public, this is the one, the K2 that I recommend for the general public. That means people that are not decalcifying. That one there is the one that's 100 micrograms. You can take one with those with a lot of animal foods, and if you've got a partner or whatever that doesn't eat a lot of enough animal foods, you can put them on 2 of those. So for all your carboxylation of the different proteins, for all the sort of stuff that you need, it's enough. So you need about 150 odd or whatever micrograms, or to 200, depending on the size of the person. If you're very smaller, 100. If you're very middle range, 150, and if you're very large, like Sean Baker or something like that, about 200. But he's probably getting it just from his diet because he's eating so much meat. So yeah. So in that regard, and it's usually majority people that I actually consider these things are people that are pretty much older, but don't have any soft tissue calcification. Soft tissue calcification is a different protocol altogether. You need to email me about those things because there's a whole protocol. I haven't done it. I've talked about the soft tissue calcification protocol. I've talked about, how I sort of decalcified my own system, from cardiovascular disease and a lot of other fibrosis throughout my body. But that's a completely different kettle of fish, depending on what you're trying to do and stuff like that. The general stuff should be there. High doses of minoquinone 4 are just not indicated for the majority of people. You don't need them. Pretty much that. But yeah. Anyway. And the other issue that I'm always worried about, that I've actually said to Pete, if you do high dose of minoquinone for short amounts of period of time and all that, you need to make sure that you maintain a good calcium level. That means through dairy. So you don't, because some people basically have done for long periods of time high doses, and they've come back to me and they've ended up with lower serum calcium levels. And I'm going, and was there a reason why you did this? And also, they don't have the taurine that actually regulates and keeps calcium in a certain homeostasis. And I go, was there a reason why you did this? You're doing it. And I'm going, yeah, but I'm decalcifying from cardiovascular disease. You don't have the same problem. So it's, yeah. And I know what I'm doing, and I'm controlling the dosages and stuff like that, and making sure that I'm getting enough calcium and a whole lot of other things. So I'm not just doing it in a blasé way. It's done in a controlled, regulated way, and it's an on, off. You've heard me sort of doing minoquinone, high dose of minoquinone for a period, and then cutting it off and not doing any for a while. I'm on, yep. off in that regard. So it's not a continuous thing. Because, if you're putting out there a whole lot of these proteins, they need to latch onto some calcium, don't they? And if there's not much in the soft tissue, what are they going to latch on in the end? Into serum. And that's when minoquinone 4 does go up in the bloodstream as well at that stage, because you will notice it around a bit more. Not a lot. There's not a lot, but it will, where normally when you take menaquinone 4, it vanishes completely. There's nothing. You don't even see it at all. So when people have done tests, they're going, oh, there's nothing here. This is when, but that's usually when they've actually done that, is when the majority of people are on a SAD diet, majority of people got some level of calcification of soft tissue. So obviously it's being sucked up and being utilized to deal with soft tissue calcification. But once that soft tissue calcification goes down to a very low level, it's a bit like, fat. When you actually drop to a certain level, if you're not putting back the fat, you're going to end up in that sort of rabbit starvation sort of state. So because you don't have enough body fat. I just checked my blood level, 62. Is it too low? No, not really. Not really. As long as you're feeling fine. Some people, I actually had one case where I normally am in the 4s, and I've showed you my blood sugars before. And then I actually went and this I showed you ages ago in one of my live streams, where I actually pushed down to 3.7 millimoles, which, what is that? There can be a lot of other reasons. You can sometimes have problems with gluconeogenesis happening. Something may be inhibiting it, which is another issue. But even, look, it's not going to kill you. I'll give you an example. George Cahill actually did experiments where he actually fasted people, got them into ketosis, and then infused insulin into them.
Oh yes, I know about
to lower their glucose down to very, very low levels. Those people did not pass out. I mean, much lower than yours. We're talking about, down to 15, 20 milligrams per deciliter. Milliliter, isn't it? I think it's milliliter. Can't remember now. It's confusing these.
Well, you have still have about 4 grams of sugar in your bloodstream. So.
Okay, let me just find what it is because I need to find the calculator. This is the online calculator that I sort of use for those who may want to use it. And so that's 3.444. I'll actually put that on the screen. But I've put it actually in the chat just in case people want to actually see it. So this is a fairly okay converter. Does the job. As you can see, 62 deciliters, yep. And millimoles, 3.4. Now, mine were 3.7 at the time, and I'd actually eaten so much. It was like priming, eating shitloads of beef, and it actually dropped down to 66.6. So maybe it was that sort of anabolic effect. And that was, it did normalize again after, but it's sort of, some people seem to, when they have a lot of, maybe if your insulin is good, maybe it does that. Look, there's a lot of things we don't really understand. I'll be honest, we don't understand.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering
you're not going to die. You're not going to die at that level. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe you're not as gluconeogenic at that stage. Is maybe because you're not producing. One thing that I did notice is that when I have a high dose of taurine, my blood sugar goes down further. And because remember, taurine does inhibit lactate. Lactate can be used as a precursor for gluconeogenesis. And so it may be minimizing the amount, but it does actually increase lipolysis also at higher doses up to, I've seen levels up to 38% or whatever. So it can actually, or 20 something percent. It can vary between people, but it actually does increase the actual acetyl-CoA through the Krebs cycle. So it actually increases. Remember, Bart was doing that DCA, and I said, well, you can actually get a milder effect of that sort of similar thing, a reduction. Well, it doesn't. That other thing completely removes, lactate, but it has these. Then it supercharges the Krebs cycle. But that's the citric cycle. That's a problem in itself because it creates shitloads of ROS, shitloads of reactive oxygen and hydrogen peroxide comes out of that H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, shitloads of it. So it's not I can, where taurine, on the other hand, doesn't have that problem. One, it reduces lactate. Two, it actually increases the lipolysis through the Krebs cycle, and improves the efficiency of the Krebs cycle without actually creating excessive amounts of ROS or hydrogen peroxide. So it's not as the other one, which is a bit more, but that's overcharging the system, and I don't think that's a good idea to do it for long term. And Bart understands that as well. He was just doing it as a bit of a hack to see how it would work, but it does actually can actually also induce insomnia. And I actually said to him, "Do you realize this could be an issue?" And he said, "Okay," and he cut it out. This was the DCA thing, so because so there could be, as I said, with Bart, there could be a lot of confounders, not only the coffee, there could be the DCA that it was playing a bit of a role as well. So there was a few elements there, so to speak. And as I said, I just gave him the information. I said, I'm not going to tease it out for you. You're a big boy. Here's the information. You do it yourself. So, but yeah. As I said, sometimes people ask me, they go, "Oh, what do you think?" And I go, how the hell do I know? I mean, unless I've got a full background storyline of you, I can give you a generalized, answer for certain things, but specifically for you, there could be a whole lot of things in play. How many times have I actually asked people things, and then I've gone back and I go, how about this, this, and this? And then they've come back to me and said, "Oh, I've been doing this, and I've been doing that." I mean, I go, "Okay, so have you considered this, take those out and you'll be fine." And so, I now do pick up on when people bullshit to me.
Yeah, no, it's
don't give me the full answer. And I go, okay, it's more than likely. Are you doing this? I usually ask them, are you doing this?
No, a lot of the reason why I tune in so regularly is because I've been trying to help some people I know, and that's the thing. I come here to listen to the details because the devil is in the details. A lot of people are doing things I am not even aware of. Like this friend I'm trying to help, she often complains of, "Oh, but it's so hard for me because I lack energy." I'm like, are you eating enough fat? Because first of all, like it's so hard for people, like in the beginning, it's so hard for people to eat enough fat, because even if you realize, oh, this isn't dangerous, on a deep psychological level, you just don't want to put down enough fat. And then there's the other issue, which became apparent after some time after I was helping her. I think she has some kind of issue with her liver or something, and that's probably stifling her ability to do gluconeogenesis. So that may be an issue as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, Phoenix compilation, 1 gram per day. You can do that for the rest of your life. It's not a non-issue. That's a non-issue. I mean, that's like 100 grams of, like eating 100 grams, which is 3.53 ounces from memory of, which is bugger all, of oysters, will give you 1.2 grams.
Yep.
So if you were to eat a couple of oysters every day, it'd be the same thing. It's just cheaper to get it in a supplement. That's the only difference. But you could consume oysters every day. I mean, I knew some old Greek fellows that used to go and get oysters and have a couple of oysters every day. They just loved them. So it's no different. You can get it from sort of real food, or you can get it from a supplement. At that level, it's not a non-issue. And yes, it does improve hydration. Because it regulates. It's a osmolyte. It regulates all the fluids, regulates the electrolytes. So that's the reason why it is better hydrating, and it actually maintains better homeostasis within the cell and outside the cell of the fluids. If you've got too many fluids, it dumps them. If you've got too many of certain electrolytes, it dumps them as well. It's really good at regulating at the kidney level. How much sodium you retain or dump is determined by the level of taurine you have in the kidneys. That's another reason why a lot of keto people that don't eat enough meat have electrolyte issues. I've been saying it for ages. Your electrolyte issues are a taurine or a meat deficiency. I say it. You guys are on a meat deficient diet most of the time, eating too many plants on your keto. Yeah, it's pretty much as easy as that.
I think we're like slowly, as you said, there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but slowly it's becoming clear to me why a lot of carnivores go to the rapid camp, and it's like lack of taurine and mitochondrial damage, things of the sort, and they're like, oh, I added back the sugar, I feel so good.
Yeah, let's do a bit of more mitochondrial damage with the sugar. Yep. Let's add a bit of more deuterium in there if we haven't put enough over a number of decades.
It's like when people say, oh, but I'm fit, I'm metabolically healthy, I can have a little bit of
this. I've heard all that bullshit.
Yes, I don't have lead poisoning here. I can have some water from a leaded pipe.
Exactly. Precisely. It's ridiculous. Good day, Tracy. Yeah, what can one say? And that's the problem. Most people don't. They'll always come up with excuse. Oh, I can do this. Oh, about this. Oh, that. And I go, give us a break. All you're doing is causing yourself electrolyte retention by raising insulin, and you're basically causing yourself and because it's a mild, it doesn't actually raise a lot of blood pressure because fructose, half glucose. You're getting a much milder elevation, and so it's not as blunt as eating a whole lot, like a couple of tubers and engaging the Randall cycle in a heavy way. You redirect part of that glycating factor back into fat and stuff like that. And if you're doing exercise quite a bit, you can actually oxidize that. But you're still basically causing massive amount of glycation through your body, and you're also increasing, AGEs, advanced glycation end products in that regard. So I do have a video that is meant for the middle of the year, but I may have to bring it forward and do it. And maybe go on a full Saladino assault video and have some really fun. Some really fun. That's what I'm thinking of doing.
Okay, that will be good.
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of this bullshit. So I think I'm going to take the sword out, Damocles sword, and I'm going to basically take out some let's say some honey lovers.
Yes.
So I'm going to be brutal, absolutely brutal, like I was. Remember the comedy thing that I did on homocysteine with?
If you manage to do one of that
with Gregor.
Yes.
I think I'm maybe as brutal on him like that as well. So yes, because I'm sick of this bullshit, this repeat bullshit, because that's what it is.
Who waits for movie releases these days when you have this type of stuff over here? I don't understand.
Any benefits from cow milk? What's the ideal homogenized or unhomogenized milk? Any specific brands and types you'd recommend in Australia? Mountain Ash. There is actually raw milk sold in Australia. It's made by cow, it's called. Yes. So you have to look at the actual stores. Even some Coles outlets are actually selling it as well, which is one of the big supermarket chains in Australia. So put back mine. So let me share this. And this is the company. I'll drop that in the chat box. It's made by cow. This is the one that I get. They do have a lactose-free one as well. So they remove the lactose before they put it into the device, which knocks out the bacteria. So pretty much that's the device. They plug it into this device. That's pretty much it goes from the cow. They put it into the bottles. Obviously, the lactose-free one, they actually remove the lactose and then put it in this pressure device. So as you can see, that's coming directly from the cow, bottled, then put in this device. So there's no other chemicals or no other processing, whatever. The only thing that happens with the lactose-free milk is they remove the milk sugar. That's the only thing. But the other milks don't go through that process. Obviously, they just go right through the process. They come through here and they go through this cold high press, which is I can't remember how many times. It's like the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. It's I can't remember 6 times what do they say?
Yeah, it's
So
like
that's tradition.
five or six times, something like
Yeah, yeah. So it's unlike versus this this pasteurization and homogenization that actually happens here. None of that happens. It's unhomogenized. That means the fats. The question isn't so much the proteins. Proteins, I don't really care if they are broken up. That's irrelevant because when they get into your gut, your stomach acidity will denature. So I'll say it again: denature fats and proteins to their basic constituent parts of fatty acids and and amino acids. Got it? So basically, your stomach is a denaturing device. So
Yep.
this bullshit. Oh, I don't want it to be denatured. Give us a break. Your stomach does it anyway. What we're talking about here is the damaging effects of pasteurization or the damaging effects of homogenization to the fatty acid. So you could damage and cause, especially to the MUFAs and PUFAs in the milk, which is very little,
Yes.
but you could actually cause them some damage and oxidation and stuff like that. Expose them to, and that's why we don't like homogenization. But it's very little. We're talking about the body can cope. If that's the only thing you have is homogenized milk, your body's got enough intracellular antioxidants to deal with it. It's going to be a non-issue, even regular milk. But if you want to be like Puritan, clear Puritan, I don't want any damage whatsoever, then you don't want homogenization. You want this approach. And they basically, it's, grass-fed cows. They get the milk from grass-fed cows. They put it in this device, and then they make it in a way that it's approved by the government of New South Wales, and then other governments have accepted the certification from the New South Wales government because we have a constitution which allows the free movement of goods and services between states under the constitution. So if one state approves it, other states can't reject it.
Oh, nice.
So basically, that's why I was making a big fuss about, how the government was violating the constitution by not allowing humans or stuff to travel, between states because they were violating the constitution. And if there was a real pandemic, yes, they could basically limit human movement, but not goods. And so now, stock list. That's right. The stock list. You go to the stock list. Now there is in some supermarkets. If you go to the Coles supermarket website, you will find this product. So you can actually go in here and you can put your location, where your location is, and it'll give you the stores. So if you're basically, we'll just do Victoria, Melbourne. So if you're in Melbourne and you're, oops. They should allow this to see. That's an idiotic thing they haven't allowed it. But you can actually just you can actually just zoom to the store. Like if you click here, it'll actually bring you to the store where it is. So if that's in your locality, let's say you're in Lonsdale Street, you live, well, that's the closest one to that locality, as an example. And then the store. So there's Woolworths, they have it as well. There are Coles and Woolworths in the state. In Hobart, unfortunately, the main supermarkets don't carry it, but in the big cities, the big metropolitan centres, they do. In other sort of regional areas, it's usually by small specialist shops, like in Tasmania. So if I go 7,000 for the Hobart CBD, you've basically got Umara, so City Organic, which is where I go. It's unfortunately not zooming in for whatever reason. So there's City Organic and there's Yamara. So Barrack Street. And that there is Goulburn Street. So it's just oh, sorry, there. That's Goulburn Street. And it's just below Goulburn. It's on, well, just below the corner of Goulburn and Barrack Street, where it is. So used to be a good pub there. I used to go years ago, and it got shut down. Anyway, and then the other one is City Organic, which is over here, which is where I usually go. So I work over here, so it's very close to go here. And when I'm coming in from, now that I'm working from home, it's much easier to come here. And I know them, so I get on with them. So they are my suppliers. But if somebody is going to Umara and doesn't go to City Organic, they can buy it there as well. Umara have recently brought it into stock, where before they had didn't have it. And I don't know about Launceston, but I do know that Organic Grocers and Upbeat and a few others, and yeah, I don't know whether Umara in Launceston has it as well. You'd have to call them and find out if you're in this part of the woods. So that's basically your options for that sort of stuff. So that's how you search and find out your store, and you get it. AG, how are you? Hi, Harry. Any thoughts on why my blood pressure would be 138/88 when I'm young, fit, carnivore, no health issues? I read somewhere people can be salt sensitive or not getting enough potassium. Yeah, they can be salt sensitive, but also they can actually, if you're not getting enough, if you're overcooking your meat, you're not getting enough taurine, you can't hold on to inside the cells potassium or magnesium. And that's another reason why I say to people on bodybuilding to add taurine, because what it does is it holds in intracellular magnesium and potassium levels, which are really important, especially, like magnesium ATP. If you want energy production, you need magnesium inside your mitochondria and inside your cell. So it's very important. So for energy production, plays a very important role. And sometimes people notice they put in taurine, they have a bit extra taurine, and not only does their cramps go away, their energy production improves. They feel, I've got more energy. That's because you're retaining more magnesium inside the cell. And on top of that, their blood pressure comes down and normalizes. Now, there can be other things. Bart found out that the big thing that was actually affecting him was caffeine. So, are you drinking coffee? Some people are very sensitive to caffeine and tend to basically, like Bart and many others, tend to actually have a higher blood pressure on a carnivore diet. with, and on any diet practically, but they are more sensitive to caffeine, and when they take it away, it fixes the problems. So you can actually take away caffeine for a while, normalize it, then bring it back, and as long as you're getting enough taurine in it, enjoy it, which is what I do, in that regard. So, but for me, it was more that I was doing it for other purposes, but I still maintain at least 4 grams, and it's great. No cramps, none of this sort of stuff. I can do a lot of different things, and my fibrosis is still lowering in all these different tissues, because I've still got some fibrosis that I'm dealing with. Plus, I'm not getting any leg cramps and stuff like that, because I used to get terrible calf leg cramps. So I've got big calves, and naturally big calves. I know some of you bodybuilders out there are probably jealous as. Yes, I don't care. So, and pretty much, oh, that's right, Lilith. I actually showed him to Lilith once, and she goes, "Oh, they're really nice." Showed her a picture, and she goes, "Oh, they're really nice calves." She was sort of impressed. I said, "Yeah, they're pretty good," but as I said, I keep my channel pretty clean. I don't do those sort of exhibitionist stuff. You want those? Go and see Bart K. He's an exhibitionist. So yes. And without going into more stuff, he even encourages poor old Lukey to basically strip. And I mean, God, hasn't he got any decency, the man?
I have issues just flexing my arms on camera, and he's like, "Oh, no, show us your arms. Come here, you sexy fucker." Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, these Kiwis, no control over themselves.
We love you, Bart.
Very much, very much. I'm surprised he wasn't around. He's probably gone taking the dogs for a walk or whatever with
probably.
Pim, which is a nice thing. I mean, because last time he said, "Oh, do you want me to come on?" I said, "Pim wants to go for a walk, doesn't she?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Go." I mean, at the end of the day, I say to people, you can always watch my videos later on, my stuff. Most people will turn up because they want to ask questions and they want me to answer the questions. I'll be better get going on doing that. yeah. But do try a bit of a bit of taurine and see how that, or if you've got coffee, take it out for a while. You'll be surprised how rapidly it drops. I've had people that have been like at your level and they've dropped below the 120, then down to 110 even. That's how high the coffee was keeping it up. But they were drinking quite a few coffees a day. And then once they took the coffee out, their blood pressure just dropped even below what we consider the normal 120. So yeah, they were quite surprised. Ken Kesey and his band of merry pranksters once conspired dose LA's water supply with LSD, maybe to heal the world. We should dump in a few tons of taurine into the town's water supplies. It probably would be it'd probably improve a lot of people's health around the place. It probably would. The only reason I wouldn't do it is because you still have a lot of people on blood pressure meds at the moment, and a lot of them consume quite a bit of water because they're constantly on the kibble diet, dehydrated, and that's where I'd be very worried about those people, ending up with very low blood pressure because of the meds being a calcium channel blocker. So that's why I wouldn't do it. But for if it was like a water supply to a school or whatever, you probably could actually improve the health of young people with all the junk that they consume now. Yeah, because they're still not on blood pressure meds. Yes, but I do understand your sentiment. Yes, there are better. I mean, remember years ago they were actually talking about putting statins into the water supply. Some crazies. Exactly. How freaking crazy can you be? That's what they were thinking about. How, what the lunacy is beyond a joke. So yeah, but yes, but taurine would be a great if it was a period when we didn't have all these pharmaceuticals, because lithium is another one that actually, when you take taurine, it actually causes retention of lithium. So yeah, it can be an issue. So people need to basically, they don't need lithium. All they need is taurine in high doses, and it can actually fix the same problem. And over time, they can come down even from the high dose of taurine and be on an ancestral diet like people like Amber O'Hearn and stuff like that, and normalize, So, but what they need is to shift away from lithium to taurine, and then slowly but surely come down from those higher doses as their body starts being able to cope with less and less taurine, because it's re-regulating itself. A lot of us eat lots of eggs every day. Is there any potential issue with considering that eggs were only available seasonally during our evolution? Yeah, you could say that. You could basically say that, But I view it from a different point of view. I go, so what's in eggs? What is in eggs? There's protein. Well, that exists in animal foods, in other animal foods. There's cholesterol. Well, that exists in other animal foods. There's a whole lot of micronutrients. They exist in all other animal foods. So, there's, okay, there's one or two substances, but that's very minor in that regard, So, yes, because you would have had, but remember, even the biotin issue, that's a non-issue. It only binds about 28%, 27, 28%. So you're still getting the majority of it. You can still get more biotin by eating raw eggs, which is what our ancestors would have done. So the only other issue is potential, and it's usually modern people, not ancient people. Ancient people didn't have these problems, just modern people. It's usually, like people have got sensitivity to even animal foods, beef, because of ticks and stuff like that. And it usually happens because people have got poor immune systems. Poor immune systems due to lack of an ancestral diet and vitamin D tends to basically allow for these sort of autoimmune type effects happening from the ticks. So it's more this issue because we were in a, if you take a look at ancestral people that are eating animal products, they were constantly interacting with ticks and all that, Aborigines and many others, people in Australia or in, Native Americans in the US, North American Plain Indians and whatever else. They would have had contact with these sort of things all the time, but they didn't have a problem with eating animal meats and all that, this sort of anaphylaxis. I think that this happens because most people nowadays have got such a poor animal-based diet that they don't have the protectiveness of that. They've got a much weaker immune system, lack of vitamin D, a weaker immune system. And so what happens is they end up with these sort of derangements or these anaphylaxis or stuff like that. Yep. I've actually noticed that even in work, the two people that have got these issues, both are vegetarian.
Yep.
And I look at people that are basically, I've done a bit of, that have had these sort of issues of either being past vegans or vegetarians or stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I'm going, isn't that interesting?
No, and it's always like this because a lot of people, they go on a health train and then they develop sensitivities because they're eating lots of whole grains, things of the sort. And Harry, I have like a personal hypothesis because I've been called out a few times over here in some Brazilian circles, but when I tell people that I'm recovering from like autoimmunity and stuff, they often criticize me because I choose to consume. I like to consume pasteurized milk, and they do all that. Like they cite all these potential mechanisms, how they A1 casing stuff, and all those things, and I'm like. My hypothesis is I think a lot of people they damage their guts with other things, and they also don't have enough proteases. They don't have enough stomach acid, and they also have a poor immune system. From not enough vitamin D, and that's what's triggering reactions to those things because you can't properly deal with it. Because I don't believe that's something. It's not ideal. Look, the best way to have milk is like raw, minimally processed.
Exactly.
But I don't believe that something as simple as thermal treatment would turn it into a like autoimmune generating like
exactly. It's just nonsense. As I said, the only thing you lose is basically you lose some micronutrients, and as a consequence, and you're basically left with a food that is a bit more, how can I put it, a bit more of a macro intake than with a much diminished micro intake. That's really what it is, but and you lose the lactoferrin, you lose a lot of other important peptides that are in there, a lot of other nutrients. Taurine, you don't actually lose it much at all. I was surprised. Even when you do high temperature taurine, it's because, remember, milk, you're not losing the fluids. It's still there in the bottle.
The liquid, yes.
Yeah, the liquid's still there. You're not losing it. So it's not like meat that you lose it, but it is much smaller, the amounts, but still you don't lose any of the fluids, you were going to say.
Here's something funny for you. I need to find this study again, but the impact in vitamin C is actually very low, to the point that some studies actually show higher concentrations because you lose some liquid to evaporation, but the pasteurization, it is actually so mild how much it damages the vitamin C that in some instances you can actually get a higher concentration afterwards. It was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah. No, look, I've actually seen something recently as well where unless you're doing it ultra high temperature,
yes.
and it depends on the countries.
Yes.
I've been looking at that as well a bit, and I've noticed that different countries have different methods of pasteurization. Not everything's the same. I was surprised that not everything was uniform. And so now I've realized that, and that's why I haven't been saying it at all. It's for real reason. When I talk about the vitamin C thing with pasteurization anymore, is because I'm not really sure about it anymore. What I originally was saying. So yeah, Harry may have got it wrong on that one. Let's put it that way. So that's one reason why I've been, let's say, a bit aloof or not saying it, because while ultra high pasteurization would definitely, because that does over a long period at very high temperatures, but you won't lose much taurine. It'll actually drop like point. So if you go from, it will drop by so pasteurization to raw milk will drop at something like 0.01, and then the the ultra type pasteurization will actually drop it by 2.02 milligrams. So it's absolutely bugger all, extremely little in that regard. Actually, the best source of basically taurine is buffalo milk. And then the next, it's about 12 times more than cow's milk, and goat milk is the next one, which is about 11 times more than.
I was going to say.
Yeah, so the other one is goat milk, and so it's and pretty much and I think lamb, sheep are sort of similar to goats, slightly less and all that. But, a lot of the extra, and for whatever reason, I have no idea, because hard cheese tends to take a lot of the fluids out. But actually, when you actually do a hard goat cheese, it actually magnifies the taurine levels, the fermentation process. And I have no idea why it doesn't, how it does it, the exact mechanism of and it actually increases by 8-fold. I know. Weird. It goes.
I wouldn't have expected
from the actual milk. It actually goes up 8-fold as cheese. What
that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I know, because they're getting rid of all the fluids. Because you have to get rid. You put it in. I remember my father putting it in and string.
Yeah, I'd expect it to be in the way.
Yeah, and apparently it concentrates. I don't know. Maybe it's the bacteria that basically ultra, because there is some sort of alteration because of the fermentation problem of the amino acid profile.
Oh, sure. Okay, so there may be.
And because actually Lama asked me about it, and I sort of knew about it, and I gave him the information. But I didn't want to get into it because he actually picked me up that I mentioned it in one of my other videos and said, "Oh, what do you mean about that? It increases with fermentation?" I go, "Now I need to explain it to him," because he's a bit like that. He jumps like onto things. He picks out is a bit like my brother Sean. He picks out the actual word here or there that you may have said, and goes, "What do you mean by this? Am I being picky?" Yes, I said, "Yes, you are." So, but it's a sort of an interesting one. I have no idea. Well, I've got the hypothesis is basically that it's the bacteria that are doing this, and seem to basically changing the protein profile. But I've been searching now. I remember doing one day about 3.5 or nearly 4 hours searching, trying to find how this mechanism actually works, and I haven't been able to find how this I'd love to know how the actual bacteria are doing it in that regard. And any ideas? I mean, I couldn't think of myself.
I have I'm like brainstorming right now, but I think I have a hunch, but it might be related to industrial chemistry, because I know that the companies that make taurine, they're usually the ones making like glutamate and other. They're carrying out amino acid reactions, and they use specific bacterial strains. But I don't know if they know how they work, or if they're just like, okay, it works, let's just mix everything in a vat and we filtrate out.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I've actually heard about some of the supplement makers that are using this sort of stuff, and that's where I came up with the fermentation thing. That was the only one to explain, but they don't even know exactly the mechanisms either.
They may not know the mechanism. That's what I think.
Just know the strains.
I have information about some strains, but I need to check up on it. But I'd really
like to know, because then I can compare and say, okay, then because then you could potentially take these same strains that are actually in goat milk and put them into a different type of milk and get the same results. Technically speaking, yeah, exactly. Just think of it. No. You could actually take goat strains that are primarily in goats, put them into cow's milk, and actually get more taurine. As an effect, or it's similar. Like some people have done the same thing, like to increase the minoquinone 4 in some cheeses. They've done something similar. Yeah. So I'm saying, well, maybe you can do it with taurine as well. So there's a lot of different options here. I mean, you could, if you think about it, you could actually basically then get those strains. You could pretty much make a high taurine, like a drink, in a sense.
Yes, from the natural fermentation, so like naturally fermented soda, kefir type of thing.
Yeah, maybe. That's what I mean. A sort of a kefir type, and make a sort of a high taurine kefir or something like that. Didn't think of that.
No, that's interesting. I need to get.
There's a good thing of having somebody that knows a bit more about industrial chemistry, like yourself.
Yep.
Because that's the sort of area you specialize in, sort of
exactly
helps bring some of these, or some of these ideas out. But potentially you could basically do that sort of stuff. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah, Pat, I've been there. Yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't have the stroke part. One of my uncles, Dad's younger brother, he's had a couple of strokes. Still going. But he's the sort of person that he doesn't want to. He doesn't give a shit. He's basically one of those people. He does not worry about anything. He's probably the psychopath in our family. Just doesn't give a shit about anything. And my uncle Nick's just basically, he loves to enjoy things. He's got his chocolates, he's got everything else, and he'll go out with a bang, definitely. But you're still going. I mean, God, he's in his. I think he's just got into his early 80s, and he's still getting around, still driving around and all that. He's just sheer will. As I say, sheer Serpanos will. He's got. He's sort of he's like the Uber Serpanos, because most of my ancestors, a lot of them were pretty much warriors and very much involved in military affairs in Greece from the time of liberation. So that it runs in the family. We don't mind, let's say, using weapons. It runs in the family, or shooting at things. But so we do have this will to live, will to basically just keep going and all that against all odds. So I think that he's one of those people. But obviously not all of us are that way, and so we do need things. And I would say that the best stuff from what we've seen when it comes to heart disease, like heart reperfusion, taurine protects heart from reperfusion. So when you've had a heart attack, right after you get sort of a reperfusion, blood rushes back in, oxygen rushes back in, and at that point you can actually get a lot of oxidative stress, a lot of damage. Well, taurine prevents that. The same thing can happen, within the cerebral, the brain area, and after a stroke, taurine mitigates that as well. I would hope that at one point in the future, when you went to a hospital, they would infuse you intravenously with high doses of taurine, if you're a stroke or a heart victim, especially when there's so much research on this, on reperfusion, on oxygen coming back into the tissue and how damaging it can be, and that how pretty much taurine can mitigate that completely. It is beyond the pale. I do not understand why this isn't being sorted out. Because not only that, it actually prevents this fibrotic tissue being created in the heart, and it reduces it. So it's beyond the pale that this knowledge hasn't really got out there. And I mean, some doctors have realized that some researchers are now using it even as a chemoprotective, because it is a chemoprotective substance as well. And there are some oncologists out there that have picked up on it and are applying it in their practice with their patients. They're giving them taurine to protect them against chemotherapy damage, because it's and also it actually prevents chemo resistance, which is another big problem with chemotherapy. So it has a lot of benefits, taurine, in higher doses, obviously, compared to what the average person requires, but it's potent stuff in that regard. So yeah, look, I understand. I mean, Pat, you're like me, you're in the same sort of boat. You definitely need taurine, and you definitely need to get it in your diet. Now, obviously, if you're on blood pressure meds, you need to go and see my video, or lithium, on any meds, go and see and take a look at my video that I did on that, and make sure that you've understood that properly, and then practice it appropriately as you're bringing in the stuff. You need to basically make the appropriate adjustments so you don't cause yourself any other problems, because I definitely don't want you passing out or anything like that. And yes, so, and because it is okay. Chemo killed 2 of my kids and my mother. That's pretty bad. Yeah. So you're probably more vulnerable to cancer as well. Go and look at my cancer videos. I've got a whole playlist. You'll get a lot of information of how to basically start killing off all the senescent and damaged cells. So go and look at that stuff, Pat. So fair enough. You've had enough of doctors. Look, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. If you're not on blood pressure meds and you're not on lithium, those 2 medications, then you're probably pretty safe. Look, the medical system is bad, and it actually causes more harm than, relatively more harm than good. Now, acute medicine is good. So surgery, if you've got an acute injury, you've injured yourself and all that, I'd like to be in a hospital to be stitched up. But, chronic medicine is so bad because of the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry. It's so corrupted. Yeah, that's we do make the differences between the two, and I don't consider the doctors murderers. I wouldn't go that far. I just consider them that they basically so brainwashed they've got no idea what they're doing. In many cases, some of them realize that and actually make changes, and so which is an important thing. And Adek is actually right. You really need to basically get on an ancestral diet ASAP. Souls Tracy right. Yep, you need to get. They want us sick. Well, it's not really that. The pharmaceuticals and the big lobbyists basically want us sick because they make the profits. Most doctors have got no idea. They got no idea what they're doing. They're actually making themselves sick. You know that the life expectancy of a doctor is actually lower than many other people in many countries. It's because doctors have got no idea what they're doing. They're so brainwashed in this sort of stuff. Now, there is a doctor's establishment, like the big organizations that run the doctors and stuff like that. They are, on the other hand, yes, the other ones reaping all the benefits of making the cash with the pharmaceutical industries and everyone else. Yeah, that's where the problem. Now, there are some corrupt doctors, yeah, like in any profession, people that know that this is wrong and still basically work the system to make a lot of money. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But most people go into the medicine for actually and nursing and all that for the right reasons. They want to help people. They just basically don't know how to help them properly because they've been so brainwashed with misinformation. Experimenting, Lukey? Experimenting?
Yeah. But you know me, not anything crazy, just higher doses of yerba mate as a test.
Okay. Just that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but
okay.
it has caffeine, so I'm being careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful exactly because of the magnifying effect that I said earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I got my sweet spot though, because I've been noticing here, because I can actually get like a decent boost in the afternoon, but I'll still fall asleep just perfectly.
Sounds good. G'day, Nathan. Yeah, look, milk isn't for everyone. Some people don't react well with milk.
Yeah. No, but
yeah, I mean, I've got lactose persistent genes, and so much easier.
I'm lactose persistent, but the first time I tried it, let's just say I had a kind of a microbiome thing. It was a bit shitty. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Heat. Yeah, the potty just had cat thing was exactly cooked meat, which reduces because they can't synthesize any. We can synthesize some. This is why people, when they overcook their meat, they're still synthesizing some within their body, and because they're getting more methionine, and if they're young in particular, methionine, cysteine to taurine, they can still synthesize more. So the more methionine you put into the human body, the more you can synthesize in terms of taurine. And that is why humans don't have the same effect. We've developed, because 1.5 million years ago, we started cooking meats. So we've developed a mechanism to basically produce endogenous taurine from high methionine sources. Not only just, even if you're fasted, you can still, from turnover of aminos in the body, you can still use some of those turned over proteins that are broken down to aminos, and you through mechanisms that turn over collagen in the you can still use some of those to produce taurine and other things. But when you eat quite a bit of meat, you will actually upregulate those enzymes and you'll actually produce more taurine. So a carnivore, somebody in a carnivore diet will produce more taurine even with cooked meat. But it may not be optimal because they may still have a lot of damage and issues and stuff like that. And that's where they may need more. And traditionally, no traditional society ever overcooked their meat, one. And two, they also consume some raw sources of meat. so go right through. There's plenty, I mean, beef tartare being one, that's raw. And I don't mind a bit of beef tartare. I just tend to basically put a bit more. I like it with a bit more pepper, to be peppery. That's the way I sort of like it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, my beef tartare. I find it. I can eat it, but I find it too bland, and I don't. I put some salt on it, but I prefer the. It's, some love the salt. Some like it bland. Some like it really salty, and others, like me, really like it peppery.
I can understand. I don't know. I also don't know why. I don't
heritage.
I don't do this often because I don't really like how I feel afterwards. But I like raw onion as well. Okay. So
yeah. Well, that's got sulfur as well.
Yeah.
In it. So, but yeah, look, I'm obviously for cats, it's a problem because they can't convert those amino precursors into taurine, so they have to get it in the actual raw meat. If they don't get it in the raw meat, and it has to be fresh raw meat, and that's the other problem now. Even though you can actually buy meat, it's not fresh. It's hung up, it's lost, it's dried out, it's lost some of its taurine. So it still may not be enough. That's why I said to Deborah earlier that maybe, adding a bit of taurine into the meal of the cat and dog, or even in their water, where they can consume it through the water. You can do it any way, but there are ways of actually. It's easy just putting it in the food occasionally, and giving them half a gram here or there. So they're getting a bit of and maintaining, because that's what we, when they get injuries and stuff like that, I would up their taurine levels. And I know that Sean basically was giving a whole lot of some of his supplements, and then hearts to the actual to the cat that had a hind leg injury, and within a very short amount of time, the cat healed.
Yep.
Really healed quite fast. He was shocked. He was surprised, because I actually said to him, give it a whole, and he didn't want to share his taurine, his powder. So he basically just bought it hearts and just fed it hearts. And he was shocked how quickly it recovered. The cat just basically bounced back to life. It was fine again, back to being a normal pussy. Meow. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's not bad. 25%. The deck's been doing 25%. Yeah. I vary. I sometimes, I probably don't do that high. I do probably, occasionally here and there. Probably once a week, I'll do some raw meat sort of thing. Usually use beef tartare because I like the peppery thing with the egg yolk. So I mean, I don't, where they put it in the middle. I actually bust the egg yolk, and I actually, with my fork, put it all over the place. So I put it all over the actual meat, and then I pepper it on top with salt.
If my mom were listening to this, she would be like,
Yeah, but that's how I do it. That's how I like doing it.
That's good.
I don't, because most people just have it in the middle and just cut it and sort of get a bit. No, that's. I actually just like to lather the entire egg, like using my fork and spreading it all over the actual raw meat, and then pepper and salt on top. That is nice. So
very nice.
But that's my style. I don't care what other people do. If people think that that's a bit, gross or whatever, I don't care. I know I'd probably give a French cook or a Greek cook that does beef tartare probably a heart attack. What is he doing? But I don't care. I don't follow people's rules. Remember, if I enjoy it that way, I'm going to do it that way.
For sure.
Oh well, it's not for everyone. You'll have to supplement because you're not going to be getting enough taurine.
Yeah, but the struggle is
he needs it because he's got heart stroke. He's had issues. He's got probably a lot of fibrosis, and he probably needs to basically get on the taurine bandwagon and start to reduce all that
Yes,
fibrotic
Harry.
tissue.
Yes, we have to call it the taurine train because it has the alliteration, repeats the letter T. It's perfect. It's much more catchy this way.
And also do consider menaquinone 4, but if you're going to be basically doing menaquinone 4, you've got to include calcium, and only 5 milligrams, which is the one which is a lower dose. But you have to include, if you're not including calcium foods, like rich calcium foods, then you may have to go for that other supplement, but go to 300 micrograms, like 3 of those a day type thing in a dose, or 2 of those and some sauces. I probably should go through and do a detailed video exactly on the I did one video on the menaquinones, didn't I? But
Yep, a while back.
A while back.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I can't even remember what I called
I'm
it.
trying to remember. Where did you were? I can't really remember. Were you talking about the?
I need to use stop using it, because I usually use certain types of either emotive language or like more dry type of language, and it makes it hard to search those things.
Was the one on was it the one on clotting factors, Harry? Because you have several videos on vitamin K.
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to think.
You have one on on endotoxins and one about the clotting factors, and there's a more recent one. Oh, not that recent actually. It's why Chris Masterjohn is wrong. That's from one year ago.
No, it's actually one that actually does talk about it. Let me just search for it. See if I can find it. No, that's not it. I'm going to just quickly take a look. Try to remember all these. I just sometimes. Okay, yeah. The one that I did with. You're right. The one that I did with on Chris. Yeah, I did. That's right. That was one a year ago. People kept on asking me about something about Chris and all that, and I got annoyed.
I actually remember that. Oh,
yeah, remember they were asking me about it in that times, because Chris had done some video, and people were asking me, and I was getting a bit frustrated. I go, oh, friggin' hell, I'll just make a video on it, because it got to the point that everybody kept on asking me. So
it's just like recently everyone was asking about the mTOR thing, because I think Sinclair was.
Yeah.
I
think I've covered that in my live stream.
Yeah.
But
enough times, at least for me.
Times. Yeah, I think for everyone. And as I said to people, now that you can actually use the scissors and you can snip that part out and sort of provide it and all that. So that here, actually, I did vitamin K content in animal products, like the amount in fish and all that. So there was. Go further ahead. That was just. Do I have more? Oh, that was on cheeses and stuff like that. I probably didn't go in depth in it, but there is a study there, so people can actually grab that study. I think that's the study. That was the blood coagulation factors between the menaquinones. Now, yeah, and that you can actually get the PDF of that. So you can click on that and you can get the PDF. And I believe, they're not providing access anymore. Ooh, okay. I'll put it on my drive.
Mm-hmm.
I will put it on my drive, and then people can actually, and I'll link it. I'll link it under this one. That's what I'll do, and so people will be able to get, so because whatever study it doesn't become available is not easy. I usually just copy it on my drive and create a shared link to it, so people can just get it off my drive. So even if those websites don't exist in future or whatever, it doesn't matter. People will still be able to get it off the drive and get a hold of it. So, yep. As long as you're getting from some source, yeah, that's the important part. Pretty much, the most important part is that you're actually getting that. And yeah, and Karen, do check that other site. Most people that have at the lower blockage area, I usually only, when people have got really severe blockage, really severe sort of stuff, that's when I actually get them on high doses. And I try to get them on to get enough calcium in when they're doing those high menaquinone forms and stuff like that. So I've put the other one in the chat chat box, and the other one that I usually recommend to people, as long as they're getting enough calcium in their diet and they've got a lot of blockage, soft tissue calcification, it's this one here that I usually recommend. The other high dose one, the Carlson one, the high dose one, I do not recommend unless you're doing a protocol that I've basically instructing you right through for a specific period of time and all that. This one you can do on your own without requiring instructions from me, as long as you're consuming enough calcium. But the other one, you have to do it under supervision, so to speak. So you can't just do it on yourself, on your own, because I don't want you to getting into trouble, pretty much. Actually, I'm not using the Carlson one, am I? I'm using the other one. That's right. That other company. Go to my list. I've switched. I've abandoned the other company. Oh, well. Into my lists of things. Where is it? Here it is. And this is the same company that actually produces the actual product, the Nature's Life, and it's cheaper than the Carlson one. So the Carlson one is a bit more expensive. This one is actually cheaper. So, and it's probably more affordable for most people to take that. So that's the other one. And that company's the same one that produces the taurine. So you can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere you like in that regard. So that is fine as long as you're getting enough calcium in. If you're not, then you may have to go to the lower dosage one that I put on earlier, which will be slower, but still safer. I'm a bit less reluctant now to encourage people, just because people haven't listened to me, and sometimes they do it outside the parameters I've actually set, because people don't listen and they get into trouble. And some people even cause themselves insomnia because, reducing the amount of calcium, the serum calcium, can actually induce insomnia as well, and a few other issues like high heart rate and stuff like that, and issues like that. So you've got to be very careful with menaquinone for if you're not getting enough calcium and you don't have an issue for it. You don't have a reason for it because you don't have a calcification. So a lot of people are just doing it, and I'm going, why are you doing it? Oh, everybody else is doing it. Do you really need to? Is there a reason? Nope. And from my first videos, I've talked about it. It's an anti-decalcification protocol, nothing to do with for the general use of people. It's sort of, I just need to remind people, like I do with the taurine, with blood pressure meds, because most people don't listen. They go, oh, great, I'll do that. And they're on blood pressure meds. Oh, I just fainted. Oh, great. Why did I faint, Harry? You on blood pressure meds? So, yeah. So, anyway. I will never eat raw meat. Yuck. You don't know what you're missing, mate. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, soon enough you may develop a taste for it.
That's it. I'll tell you one thing: if you're basically, if you got good stomach acidity, you'll knock everything out. That's what taurine does. Actually, it improves the stomach acidity.
That's a modern issue because people process and put meat in containers that are like, they have nothing to do with traditional conservation processes. Like you can get meat that has been like liquefied. It's putrid to the point of being liquefied, and it's still safe to consume.
Exactly. Our ancestors used to, that's why we've got very low, pH of 1.5. It's not accidental why we've got such a high acidic stomachs. So, Ben Parlus, how are you, mate? Cruise through, just trying to catch up. Don't tell them that I'm cruising through. Yes, somebody else had that issue as well once upon a time.
I wonder who.
Yes. Lukey had that problem, same problem. Now he doesn't. Mm-hmm. He's on a carnivore diet and a high vitamin D. Doesn't have the problem anymore. He's fixed his whole issue. G'day. How are you? I'm doing well. Somehow I always miss Bart and Pim's Q&A, but not you. That's okay. Yeah, he's
very much, smart woman.
He's as much earlier. He's yeah. Yes. We won't go into the details. Yes. I've said to Pim, she needs to get Ted to give him a good spanking now and then. I think her reply would be he'd probably enjoy it. I'll be on his birthday thing in the morning because he sent me a link, so I'll be on that. So you sent me an invitation. Well. Yeah, he sent you an invitation as well. Yeah. So I have to be very early because I've actually got right after that. I've got a training thing that I have to be on.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to be there all day. I've got a training thing because a work day, a training thing.
Yeah, it's a work day.
And then I've basically got our SSI, which is Spatial Surveys and Spatial Science Institute, which is sort of it's a sort of an Australian-wide that runs conferences on surveying and spatial science, which is my field of expertise. And so you gotta do those sort of things because it's important for work related sort of stuff that you're up to date with the new approaches in the field and stuff like that. So there's always, I mean, you'll get companies there that are always selling or providing products for remote sensing and surveying equipment and all sorts of stuff. So it's those are the sort of companies that tend to sponsor these sort of things. But you get some interesting people that, outside the sponsors, you get some interesting people that turn up. I mean, sponsors are pretty good because they do give you a bit of an insight on the new technologies that are being used in the field. So, and what's out there. I mean, not necessarily will my workplace necessarily buy these things right now, but in the future they may. And if you're aware of them, you're up to date. Okay, so we've got this problem. I've heard, I went to the conference, I know about this solution. We could always use that. Now, can we get enough money in the budget or, to basically be able to budget for it or whatever for at least, if not this year, at least next year or whatever. So it's always important to go to those things. And they're always interesting because there's a lot of different people. We get people sometimes from academia that come through and do some work on new approaches, and then some businesses that are basically using novel approaches, so they may be using some AI or they in a certain different novel way for analytics. There may be others that have come in and showing drones and all sorts of things and using them in different ways. And then there's, occasionally we get a few PhD students that turn up to basically do a bit of a rundown and show us what they've been researching in the field, so some new innovations and stuff like that. So there's always something interesting to see and something interesting to learn within the field. So I try to get to most of the conferences that are sort of set up, and so I was already booked in them. So before Bart published his 50th birthday thing, so now I can't get out of the other stuff because I've already booked myself in. So yeah, and it is a regular work day, so it's within working hours. So I can't basically not turn up. So I'll get up very early on that day, get on with Bart, have a bit of a chat with him in the early parts. Wish him happy birthday and all that sort of stuff, and many years and sort of and all that. So yeah. I'll be probably doing that, poking a bit of fun at him right after that, and sort of getting him stirred up a bit before I leave. then I'll leave him to you poor suckers that are going to be sitting there having to deal with him when he's highly volatile.
Yes, classic.
Turn up, throw a grenade, and then go. So yes.
Oh my god, the telepathy. That's what I was going to say. Throw a grenade and go out.
Yeah, you read my mind, or I read your mind. One of the two. Yes,
yes. Maybe both at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. we had basically one of those entangled states.
Yes.
Yes, quantum entanglement between the two of us. Beef tartare with cheese is really good. I actually have tried that with mozzarella. Actually, shredding mozzarella over it. I've actually done that as well, Jin. You're not the first one to think of that. I've actually done that as well. I actually do that on omelets. I actually will do an omelet, and then I'll when it's still hot, because it's still warm. Remember,
yes,
omelet, and then you shred that. It starts sort of getting stuck in, and you end up with an omelet with all these little bits of shredded mozzarella stuck into the actual omelet. I know. You've got to be decadent with these things. Got to be creative, guys. Try some of this stuff out.
I've been I do my usual bacon and egg omelets, but I've been adding just a little bit of shredded blue cheese, usually at the end, and it just melts all over, and it's like, oh, I don't know what about it, but it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. God, I wouldn't have done the radio iodine thing. No.
Yes.
I would have just done iodine and selenium, and it would have fixed the problem.
Yep.
But now it's too late. You've already done it. He's already done it.
Yeah. I should get an ultrasound again, because 6 years ago they did say I had some nodules. Yep.
Yeah. Look, with the touring you're doing, that should have all
Yeah,
gone. With the
probably.
actual, so that they should have cleared out all the nodules, because the taurine helps there with those fibrotic tissues, and also the other nutrients you're getting now. You're balancing that sort of stuff out. So yeah,
Yep.
that way. Is there any reason why my taste for beef has changed? I used to be like it cooked medium, and now I like it medium rare to rare. I was Carnivore for it. Yeah, it does change. Look, I used to absolutely cook my stuff to death. I was like Bart, even worse. It was all well done, and I mean really well done. And now I could not eat well done. It would be ugh. How I love the softness of basically meat that is undercooked, pretty much. So no, I couldn't go back to that rubbery stuff, whatever I called it, that was overcooked. No. But yeah, your taste buds do change. The more animal foods you eat, you start getting used to the sort of to the palate, the taste. And sugar is like, if you put sugar on your tongue, it's like, oh god, that's intense. And it is, because you notice the sugary, it's really like, you go and you go, shit. But if you're basically in the early days, then raw meats and raw eggs and stuff like that are sort of very unpalatable for a lot of people, but as they cruise along, their palate will change. They become more, more adapted to those sort of flavors and stuff like that. And then you tend to actually, enjoy those flavors. And that's why going towards a more rawer cut is actually more enjoyable, because it's got much more flavorsome. Remember, you've actually given other flavors up, which are very highly addictive flavors, and now you basically switch to other flavors, which are things. It's another reason why some people can get really addicted to dairy as well, because it's what do they call it, the alternative to sugar.
Yes.
And so people can go on a dairy addiction, like mad consumption. Eat moderate amounts. That's fine. If you can tolerate them, but don't go crazy. Prioritize ruminant animals and seafood. Prioritize those as your food. Some dairy is fine, but don't go crazy. I just have, I'll have a few slices of cheese with each one of my meals. I may, I usually have a glass of milk now and then in the evenings. If I run out, I run out. I don't bother. Don't go and buy any pasteurized. I just have my raw milk runs out. That's it. So I'm not crazy about it. And the only cheese I probably have nearly every second day is probably brie, because I like it. It's so soft and it's creamy. It's French. I get the French stuff, so it's really nice and creamy. If you leave it out, it actually just becomes really soft and mushy and stuff like that. So I tend to only do that when I'm actually having cacciatore, which is a sort of this dried meat. It's an Italian thing, and I usually cut cacciatore in really thin strips, because it's dense. It's a dense meat. Okay, so if you're a vegan and you've got soft tissues and you've soft teeth and you've just come off, do not buy it. You'll probably crack a couple of teeth. You have to have very strong teeth, because it's very dense. And so I will basically cut thins, or sometimes I do like them a bit thicker, and I'll put like brie in between, and I'll have like two pieces of that sort of it's like it's not salami, but it's similar to salami, but it's a different type of meat product, and cacciatore it's called. And I'll get some of that. Dad likes it as well. He goes and gets the the really peppery, hot stuff. I get the mild stuff, but Dad can eat raw peppers. I know. He actually grows his own peppers, red, and he eats them just crunch, crunch, crunch. He's an animal. He's an absolute animal. That old man is an absolute animal.
There was a time it was in northeastern Brazil. I went for a beach resort or something like that, and there was like a lady from Switzerland, and she was eating. So her breakfast was bread with pieces of bell peppers, and I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Oh God Almighty! She must have been a vagoon.
Probably.
Oh God. They're a worry, the vagoons. They are really a worry. Really, yeah. Started off with air frying everything crispy. Now I love raw or meats that are just 2 minutes in the air fryer. Yeah, your taste buds change so much. Mine have changed quite a bit. I was very much, had to be crispy, had to be basically burnt to a crisp. Yeah. And now I'm completely the opposite. So my father never lost that. He's still undercooks. Even all the pork that he cooks for me when I go over, it's still very pink inside. So Dad doesn't like overcooking, and all his meat is very soft and tender because it's so he does it very differently. But yeah, people just overcook stuff. And if I put something like on Dad's plate, which is overcooked or whatever, like in a barbecue, he just won't eat it. He'll leave it. He'll push it aside and just won't eat it. So I always have to make sure that remind Sean not to overcook Dad's because he won't eat it. So but that's Dad for you, You're welcome. Good to hear that they're getting some raw hearts. That's really important. Yeah. No, I was quite shocked that the cat recovered so quickly. Just feeding it hearts every day with some other food, but hearts every day, quite a bit. And he said, initially after it didn't touch them initially, but then it took a liking to them and started eating all the hearts, and all of a sudden recovered really quickly. So he was quite shocked how quickly the animal, because it had quite severe in the back one of the back hind legs, how quickly it recovered. So anyway, is what it is. Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think we get to the stage where we don't have this. We lose that sort of, our taste buds do shift. Our, I look at my taste buds going back years were very different, but again, I mean, I was consuming so much processed food, and I can still basically, I walk outside a pizza place or I walk outside, I can still remember, I get the smell and I get the sensation, it's that mental connection. And I go, oh, God. And then I walk further down and then I sort of think about that smell and go, that didn't really smell that good. Because it doesn't smell that good anymore to me.
No, yeah, I understand, Harry. It's the same. What was it the other day? It's like fried food. You go to certain places and they're like, the restaurants are like smelling of like fried
I
stuff.
know.
And it's like
It really smells, reeks.
It reeks. Yes,
People don't notice it. And I now walk outside and I go, oh God, I have to walk across the street sometimes because I dislike the smell. And that's something that even Hello Kitty, she sort of noticed as well when she started going, when she went carnivore, she started realizing after a while that she had the same, she really disliked those smells and tastes. It's just, and it's understandable. So he's 15-year-old Jack Russell's arthritis, 15 pounds. How much? Just experiment. I don't really know when it comes to veterinary animals. I don't really know dosages, but I would say that I'll give you a rough. This is sort of extrapolating because they actually endogenously don't produce.
Yep.
Okay, let me just give me a sec. Yeah, I'd probably say half a gram every day. I'd say half a gram. Yeah, because we want sort of like double that for humans. So 70 kilo person, that I'd probably say 2 grams. It would be half a gram. If you're basically to go on like a higher dose, so half a gram for a general dog. Sorry, let me just clarify that. Half a gram for a general dog. Now, if we go from 2 grams up to 4 grams, which I would put somebody maybe 6 grams with arthritis, that would have to be at least, probably 1.5 to 2, 1.5 to 2 grams. So 1.5 to 2 grams would be the area that I would go approximately. Because I still got to get some from the food and all that. Probably 1.5, 2, around about there. Look, 2 isn't going to harm it. It's not going to harm the dog. Definitely won't harm it. So, probably even higher than that wouldn't harm it. But let's just get used to it, doing 2 grams per day. And, if the results aren't happening as quick, up it a bit to 3 grams. So let me just work this. Don't go over 3. Okay, just stick up to go to 2, because that would be close to equivalent in a human, around about 14 grams. So just keep it at about 3 maximum. 2, which is a fairly high dose, but it probably needs it at that level with that sort of condition in that regard. So, and obviously the biggest thing with arthritis is a lot of the lectins, a lot of the phytates, a lot of the all these plant compounds that traditionally people would have fed their dogs and all that. Some of those things have got in there. The good thing about taurine also does help with clearing some of that stuff out, getting some of that, sorting some of that stuff as tissue turnover happens. So how fast? The dog's old, being older, the capacity to heal is much less, Throwing more taurine isn't going to make any difference, to healing processes. What we're doing is we're helping the healing process. You can only go so much. You can only do so much. So I would say stick to 2. If you're not seeing quick enough results, then go to 3. But I would only go to 3 for, as long as the dog can tolerate it. If you see the dog can't tolerate it, then ease back to 2. So you'll know, because you'll see basically it may have feeling some nausea or some issues and all that. There can be an issue with, because of, and it usually happens because the liver isn't as healthy as the dog is older, and because the liver isn't as healthy, it may not be able to, manage the sulfurs as well, which is another issue as well. So, obviously you could throw in a bit of choline in there, but it should be getting enough choline. Doesn't need to be supplemented in the diet. It's just one of those things. It is an old animal. and it's going to struggle a bit, but it will get some relief and it will actually improve. Look, I have seen people have dramatic improvement. Their dogs have dramatic improvements. Don't get me wrong, but I'm always conservative with these things. And then when it happens, like, but as I said, my brother's the cat that his partner has is sort of, you could say, middle-aged. It's not young, it's not old, it's middle-aged, and as a consequence, it seemed to recover quite quickly. An older dog or an older animal, I can't really say how long it's going to take. So it's definitely will heal. Don't get me wrong, it definitely will heal, but how long and all that, and whether what sort of dosage, you got to be careful about the nausea side of the animal. I mean, you don't want to cause it discomfort as well. You want to help it to heal without causing it discomfort. So there's that sort of side as well. So it's a balance in that regard. I mean, humans can sort of just put up with it. Animals just don't know why it's happening to them. And it can distress them even further, where a human knows exactly why I'm getting a bit, this or that. I know exactly what's happening, so yeah, it's just keep that in mind. My tastes haven't changed regardless of meat, rare to medium rare. Oh, well, you're special, but band parlous, you're different than the rest of us. Maybe you weren't on the sugar high like the rest of us, and all the kibble high of the stuff in the past, maybe. Oh, we've all become lazy carnivores, doing things the easy way. Why complicate food? So I know exactly what. Yes, and thanks, Adek, for your contributions to the live stream. Thanks for adding your bit and helping out a few people. Yes, you need a Brazilian. That will sort you out. Yes, that was the earlier stuff that we were talking about. What I was talking about earlier about,
Yep.
People in cages and complying with silly old rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're not a problem. Yep. And fair enough. Yes. Oops. G'day, Joe. Good to see you, mate. So what's been happening in Brazil? Have you guys gone zero compliance now, or?
So no more masks in indoors for most places, at least. If you take public transportation, you still need them, but yeah, no more masks at gyms and schools and things of the sort. So
we've got
really
the same
good.
thing down here. We've got the same thing down here. It's all gone. I can go to a supermarket. I can go anywhere. Nothing. It's all gone.
And well,
completely gone as well.
It seems like I'm not really so sure because the things have been quieting down, but like our current state governor, he's about to leave office, and he's like, "Oh, let me do something that will make me popular." So no more masks.
Yeah, exactly. I was sort of getting sick and tired of basically carrying. They say, "Oh, just disposable and change them and all that." I was going to go and pay money. I just use the same one.
Yeah, and it's like I have issues.
And I also when I went through certain areas, I knew certain areas that actually provided free ones. So I just throw away the old one and grab a new free one and just use that for the next couple of days. I mean,
exactly.
The moment I got out of the actual business or whatever, I'd take it off. For me, it was just
it was
compliant.
like exactly.
The compliant part. I didn't. I just didn't want to have an idiot running behind me saying, Mister, because at last I had, like, I keep it under, yeah. And like, I said, I just needed to sort of wipe myself and all that, and they'd literally follow you around. Oh, you need to be putting it on, Mister, But I just didn't want to. I didn't want to basically end up with a whole lot of fights in every store that I went to get stuff. So,
I think I mentioned it in the past, but one of my friends that lives here with me, he really bought the whole thing, fell hook, line, and sinker for the whole pandemic stuff, and I think he was personally affected. Some family members, so he wasn't thinking straight. But
I'll just say one thing to Joe. Sorry about this. No, coffee has very little. If it's basically like you go and get it, it's brewed from a barista. Very little oxalate. Very little. If, on the other hand, you actually do it instant has more oxalate in it but it also has more nutrients and more niacin and many other things. But even instant has very little in comparison. So it's not a big thing. I actually used coffee and some fermented plants to basically slow down my dumping. When I was getting this was ages ago when I was doing oxalate dumping and just to ease it. Now I'm over that part, but in the past, I did suffer quite a bit of oxalate dumping. So I used to have foamy urine and all sorts of things. So I went through a bit of now I'm fine. But yes, that'll teach me never to basically approach or caress a spinach ever.
Don't do that. No, don't do that.
No.
Yeah, but so what I was saying beforehand. So I actually went to the cinema recently, and my friend was there.
Shell, that's sorry, but no, that's what Ted does. He knows how to work his Bart. He knows how to work his Bart. You were saying about the cinema?
Yeah. So, and everyone's using their masks, but it's just for compliance sake. And in the middle of the session, everyone has their masks down, and people are eating popcorn and whatever. And then my friend, he just goes at me. He's like, "Bro, you should wear your mask in case someone complains." I just look in that in the eye, and I'm like, "Look at this cinema. Like half of the people they don't even care. They're not wearing masks, and they keep taking it off to eat. Why the hell would someone complain about me?"
Yeah. Oh, look, exactly. Yeah. Look, it is funny. What people do. So, I have to say I find it amusing sometimes. But what can one say in that regard? Yeah. Let me just find my list. I need to go back to my list. Because I've changed my MSM. I don't use the Jarrow one anymore.
Oh.
I've changed it to a different brand that is actually better quality. It also has a better price than for the MSM. So you can get this little tub of 250 grams. You can get it for about. They don't have a bigger amount in this brand, but the nice thing about it is, I'll put it in there. That's the MSM. It's a different brand. The good thing about it is, it has no other ingredients whatsoever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's got 0 ingredients. I think there's some other thing that they've put in their silicon or whatever in the Jarrow. They've changed their formulation. And I noticed it recently, and they'd actually changed it to basically, so it's almost clumpy. But I'm going, why put it in? I don't care if it's clumpy.
Yeah.
I just want it clean, pure, nothing else in it. So I've had to go to this brand for Dad because they started putting other stuff in. I'm going, nah, I don't, just keep it clean. And so
it's like the same thing with what is it? But it's not a supplement, but it's like when you want to get a high quality powdered milk and there's none because they always add something to make it easier to dissolve. And I'm like, no, don't do that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do have an effect on the adrenals. That's the reason why. Yeah, some people can't clear it quick enough. I'm a good fermenter, so I metabolize.
Metabolizer.
Yeah, really, not fermenter, metabolizer. I metabolize, caffeine really fast, rapidly, up to 4 times faster than other people. So it'll clear out of my system very fast within, at most 2 hours. So even less than that. So I'd never get a buzz from coffee. It's more the taste. I drink it more for the taste. Nothing that doesn't give me a boost or anything. Absolutely nothing. So no, MSM, I just put the MSM there. You don't need magnesium. You get more than enough magnesium. Nathan, you should go and check my video. I've done it on magnesium.
Yes.
How much magnesium do you need? You only excrete 120 milligrams per day in your urine and feces. So there is no way in hell, on hell's earth, you don't get enough from the carnivore diet. You do. You get more than 120 that you excrete every day, let alone if you've got taurine in your system, you prevent it from actually getting out of your cells. And that's the most important place it should be. Intracellular, magnesium and potassium need to be kept at a certain level. Only taurine can regulate that to that level. So, and most people just add more salt in order to try and keep the other electrolytes in. That's the only reason why they do it. But if they just basically added more taurine, it would regulate all that, and then you just put salt to taste. And then it doesn't really matter whether you put too much or too little salt. The body at the kidney level will say, we've got too much salt, let's dump it. We've got too little salt, let's recycle it and keep it. And that's why your antidiuretic hormones upregulate. You need less water hydration, but also your sodium sort of, your desire for sodium also comes down a bit. So
I've noticed.
Yeah. I've noticed as well. I used to salt more. I salt less now, because when I do salt, I feel a very salty. It's very salty, this food, because I'm not losing as much sodium, as I was losing in the past when I was doing keto. I was losing massive. I mean, I couldn't hold on to it at all. Now with the taurine, it's not a non-issue. So, and it just shows why tribal people don't hydrate with water. They're hydrating with fat. They don't have a water bottle at all. And
Exactly.
Only when they desperately need a bit, what do? They actually take, because going into a river is very dangerous. You can actually get eaten by a crocodile. So the safest place to go is basically from leaves. And if you take a look at the sand people of the Kalahari, low deuterium water from leaves they use in an ostrich egg. Plus even the Hadza that Mary was walking with. Again, they're using leaves when they want it, when they need it, not constantly. They were around with water bottles, and these guys were just walking around for hours hunting, for 4 or 5 hours, and basically no water whatsoever, no hydration, because they were hydrating with fat. Simple as that. And they upregulated their antidiuretic hormones as well.
I've noticed something funny. It's that sometimes I'll go to the gym and I may get like I feel a slight thirst at like the very beginning of the session, but it goes away because I think it's like metabolic hydration. As you move more and more, you get more water.
You get more metabolic hydration, and immediately that all goes away. It's what our tribal people have been doing for years and years and years. It's actually too much water hydration that kills most athletes. And the dehydration and the dehydrating effect that is actually caused by high sugar, because they can't tap into their own fat.
Yes, they resort to those carb gels things.
Exactly, carb gels, and they have to actually take some sodium as well. And if they don't, because they're losing sodium like there's no tomorrow, and they're losing fluids like there's no tomorrow. But when you're basically the sort of tribal person, on the other hand, you don't see that.
Nope.
Plus, they do get some electrolytes, some sodium from the blood that they consume a bit here and there.
Yes.
So it's a non-issue. That's why I say, you listen to your body. Your body will tell you when you need a bit more salt and when you don't need a lot of salt. I enjoy salt in my food. Don't get me wrong, and I know that my body will dump it if it's in, if it doesn't need it, and it will hold on to it if it does, because my antidiuretic hormones. I'm not flooding my body continuously with water and diluting my blood. So yeah.
Yep.
So it makes a big difference, and I follow my body. I get a bit of salt from some of the dairy products, the cheeses in particular. There's some salt in meat as well. So all animal foods have salt. Don't get me wrong, because all animals basically require salt, so they have it in their tissue. So it's a non-issue. I think the big player is taurine that is regulating the electrolytes. That's where it is. And then it doesn't really matter if you consume a bit more or a bit less or whatever. If you're under consuming salt, your body will tell you. If you're over consuming salt, your body will tell you. It's usually if you're basically just getting enough, your body will just regulate that, and with a taurine at the kidney level, and you just won't even notice anything. It'll just be cruising along. So the excess, once you upregulate your antidiuretic hormones and you don't consume as much water, exogenous hydration, as I call it, then your body usually regulates the electrolytes, all those things. And so the requirements sort of go down. It actually can better also, a lot of people don't realize, at the kidney level with taurine, also potassium, calcium, and magnesium and other minerals can actually be recycled after the filtration process. So as long as those antidiuretic hormones are being upregulated, you're not flooding your body with so much water that, as I say, salt, water goes where, salt and water sort of follow each other in a sense. And so, if too much hydration, you will need more salt because you'll lose more salt. Too little little hydration, then salt will be dumped. The body will try and get rid of it. What taurine does, it seems to basically regulate those fluids, regulate to a sort of homeostatic where it should be, where it at that proper homeostasis. That's why, I've noticed in myself, my exercise, everything that I do is much better. If I forget to do taurine for the day, I don't feel as good after exercising if I do it. So I go, oh yeah, I forgot. Didn't I forget something? Oh shit. I know very quickly what I've done. So oh well, nothing wrong with having caps lock on. They stand out more. Harry, you told me to ask you a live stream why a diabetic 2 was suffering hypoglycemia or low sugar. I think it's because insulin resistance, not because of the lack of glucose. Yeah, pretty much. It's, when you're highly insulin resistant, you're driving that sugar into fat storage.
Yep.
It's what happens. This is why these people are in the trough. 2 hours later, they're in the trough looking for candy again because their blood sugar has gone too low. So these people tend to go through cycles of hypoglycemia, and then they eat, they bring it up, and then the insulin whacks it down again, and then again they go through these cycles of hypoglycemia. It's only at the end when their pancreas has been overtaxed and they are struggling to produce sufficient insulin, At that point is when they end up with uncontrolled blood sugars, and that's when they are full-blown diabetes 2. This guy is more than likely pre-diabetic, that he's been classified as a type 2 diabetic. Look, I don't know the guy. I'm not his physician, so I don't know enough about this guy in particular, but I would say he's probably pre-diabetic. Now, his doctor may have classified him as diabetic, but he's still got sufficient insulin capacity to basically drive down their blood sugar levels. And for the doctor, you actually said, the doctor said you should take a bit of extra sugar to bring it up. Blood sugar, unless your blood sugar is really high, you're pre-diabetic. You're not diabetes 2. So I know that some people in the low carb community tend to say, no, you're diabetic. And, diabetes is uncontrolled blood sugar levels in the blood, because you don't have the capacity anymore to control them. So it's really, that's what diabetes 2 is. Pre-diabetic is when you're basically on the way to becoming a diabetes 2 person, where then, now, if you're taking medication like insulin or taking basically metformin and stuff like that, and that's just causing the hypoglycemia, then you may be diabetic, but you're actually taking too much of the medication. That's a different thing altogether. And his physician hasn't basically adjusted his meds appropriately, then he's incompetent, in my book, to say basically, oh, you're hypoglycemic, I've got you on medication that lowers these things, and now take a bit of sugar, would be completely incompetent to say that. But if he's basically not on meds, then he's pre-diabetic, because he's still got sufficient insulin function to basically lower it down. I mean, I can eat shitloads of sugar and my insulin will rise rapidly and bring down and force hypoglycemia. That doesn't make me a diabetic. Diabetes is uncontrolled blood sugar. So it can be either diabetes 1 or diabetes 2. It's a bit like Robbie and Cum Splatter. Basically, they've got diabetes 1, uncontrolled blood sugar levels. They can't control their blood sugar. Okay, they don't have the capacity to that. Diabetes 2 person can only control their blood sugar with medication. So until you become diabetes 2, until you're no longer got proper insulin function, at that point, yes, you become diabetic. At the moment, they just say this person is just a high carb eater, pre-diabetic high carb eater, who basically is going through hypoglycemic shocks, which is the normal thing that happens to people that have, consume excessive carbohydrates. That's all it basically is. Now, if this person is basically on any other diet, like on a low carb diet, in that regard, now they may have a whole lot of other derangements where they may not be fat adapted, and their body's basically trying to use as much glucose as possible when they're running out of it, because they're not fat adapted, so they can't use the other source. But I suspect that's not the case. I suspect this person is pre-diabetic and is a carb muncher, So, yeah, it's typical of a whole lot of carb munchers that they go through this cycle of binge. They have these hypoglycemic shocks. We've known about it this ages ago. This is nothing new. You go to most low carb doctors on low carb down under and ancestral health symposium and all the different things. They've been doing videos now for the last decade or more on this issue, how people on carb eating, carb loading, every 2 hours are in the trough eating more food. They have to have multiple meals and snacks between the day to maintain their blood sugar levels. Because they can't tap into, they've got high insulin, they cannot tap into any fat stores. And so all they've got is basically each time they run out of sugar to oxidize, and they have to run back to the kitty to have more. So they're not fat adapted, these people. These are on high carbohydrate diets, swinging in and out from glucose comas. That happens to people like
It's
you only take a look at Vegan Gains. He goes
yes,
into glucose comas where he has to, if he hasn't had enough glucose, he runs out of it because he can't tap into his body fat, and he passes out. It's a protective thing to pass out.
it's like it's mind-boggling because people find it so hard to just to do time restricted eating. People are like, no, this is so difficult, I get hungry. Like there, I was helping someone and they were like, oh, but I want to eat something. I'm like, don't, you feel hungrier. It's like, no, but I want to eat
Exactly.
something. Yeah, but then they just get a little bite of something. They're like, okay, now I need to eat. It's like the hypoglycemic.
Precisely. They induce in themselves hypoglycemia by eating shitloads of crap.
Yep.
I see it all the time. I see it at work. They're in the trough
Oh
every
yes.
2 hours. They're off. Some of them are actually. One guy. He's a programmer, and he basically is constantly going back and forward to the chocolate this chocolate container constantly, all day long. You can see him every hour, sometimes even less than an hour. He's back there picking up more chocolate and going back. Okay, yeah. What do you say? But yeah,
it's
the
socially
addiction.
acceptable.
It's basically socially acceptable. Exactly. It is ridiculously socially acceptable. Anyway, so I've answered your question, my dear, and I'm basically going to put these two little videos, and then I'm going to blast out of here because I have to be somewhere else. And so you get these two that Lukey just put up for me. So we can have a few laughs, and then after that, some laughs and I'll blast out of here. Ah, yes. Veganism is real life. Veganism on social media. Yes, there is a profound difference between the two. Correct. In real life, decrepit, falling apart, not so. And on the other one, yes, taking roids, shitloads of powders, and all these other basically, and cheating. A lot of them cheat.
Yep.
Yeah, it's endemic in the vegan community. Cheating is endemic. We
When
know
they
it.
get drunk,
A lot of the ex-vegans actually tell us that they cheated. All of them.
Yep.
So basically, we know exactly what they're up to. That crowd. I'm getting torn in it.
Oh god. Oh god. I think I outdid myself again.
Oh, really nice one, Lukey. I've been telling you, crowd, that guy's a clown.
Yes, and this meme is like it's blue light friendly. There's very little blue in it.
Exactly. It's a very blue light friendly. Very much. I think Roy tonight will have a few comments to make about this one. He'll say, "I've been telling you, I've been bloody telling you that bit of competition there. Won't hurt him."
Definitely.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Some of the laughter. Well,
no problem. Hey.
Well, guys, that's it for another show. We're well over 3 hours, and I should have been somewhere else. Well, in about 6 minutes, I should be somewhere else. But anyway, I'll be a bit late. But that's it for the week. There'll be in 4 hours. There'll be my 4 hours Eurasian live stream. So hope to see you there. And you get your beauty sleep, mate. You're getting too much. Got these young people, young carnivores looking so so handsome, and basically us old deranged and damaged carnivores are sort of struggling to improve.
The other day I was video chatting with my parents, and my mom's like, oh wow, your face is looking amazing, like your skin is perfect. I'm like, why don't you eat like me? Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I mean, Hello Kitty's basically the same. Her mother had noticed as well. She said, "Oh, your face looks much better," because she used to have a lot of these blotches on her face and all that. She's looking much better, and also her face was a bit more, because she was on a low fat type. It was a bit more narrower, and it's actually more plump now. She's got more better bone structure, and her mother noticed it, and she said, "Has your face actually changed?" She said. She was quite surprised, because mostly she's in Hong Kong, and they mostly, just call, phone, and talk. But this, was a video, and her mother had started to notice all these sort of changes and going, wow, you're looking much better and all this and all that. And yeah, she's even because she's been going outdoors now a bit more. She's less fearful of the sun. She's actually also put a nice tan on as well, so she's looking pretty good. Yes. For a middle-aged, well, I shouldn't say that. She'll get cross with me. A woman, she looks pretty good. She looks pretty hot. Well, that's what some of the men have been saying anyway. She tells me, and I'm going, oh, do they now? So I just shake my head, and in sort of disbelief, I just sort of, yeah, whatever. So. And she sort of goes, she sort of frowns.
You're going to get an earphone.
She came last time because she had taken the Novavax, and she was having a bit of like a sure salt and all that. And I go, oh, how is it, Tank? I just tapped her on the shoulder. Don't do that. I tapped her a couple of times and looked at her. Eventually, she got so cross with me, she walked away.
That's scary for you.
Exactly. Yes, I'm a difficult man to be with, ladies. I'm a difficult man to be with. But you will get. I am fun as well. I am fun. Most of the ladies do tend to come back for more fun.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I'm out of here. I've had a good day. Thanks, guys, for your support and all that.
Yep.
Take care. And I will see some of you in 4 hours' time, and the rest of you next week. And I should have a couple of other videos. I got Llama. He's actually re-edited one of my videos because I forgot. I didn't get the audio in. Certain part, he said, "Oh, I'll fix that." He fixed a few things with the video. So I actually asked him to take a look at it because I wasn't happy with it, and so he sort of fixed up a few things that I just didn't have the patience. So he sorted it out for me, which is good. And I'll release that one. And there's a couple of other ones that I've got in the works as well to put in next week. So there'll be a couple popping here and there. So keep people interested. And at the same time, like Bart says as well, there's a new scissors now. Please use the scissors like Tracy used the scissors for my singing thing. Yes, use it for other things. I don't want them to think I'm a deranged weirdo. So do use the scissors for other good content,
Just
not the musical stuff, because they're going to go. They're going to go. That's good quality music. They'll just be saying, no. We're not subscribing to this guy. His musical is atrocious. His singing is atrocious.
Oh my god! It's just like it just increased the sugar incident. We clipped you, and just now they can clip you and just say, "I'm a deranged man" or something like that.
Yeah, I know that's true. They'll be clipping this away. Tracy will be. Tracy will be all over her social media. I know this deranged guy. She'll be clipping me all over the place. Yeah. Yes. You've got to be very careful what you say around Tracy. Anyway, guys, thanks for being here. See yous. I'll let Lukey see us out.
Yeah. So stay well, everyone, and try to keep the good humor up and be successful. That's it. See us.